Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and I would like to declare that the council meeting on Tuesday the 23rd of June 2026 open at 5:30 p.m, and would like to advise that the meeting is being live streamed in accordance with the council meeting's live streaming, recording and electronic attendance policy. By being present at this meeting, members of the public consent to the city's live streaming and recording and subsequently publishing their voice on the city's website. To start tonight's meeting, I'd like to share some words that were kindly shared with me by our local elder, George Wally. People have been here for a long time. I want to acknowledge the presence of people over that long time with, firstly, the Binjarab Noongar people who continue to have an ongoing connection to this land. They have been here for over 50,000 years. This place, Mandurah or Mandurah, acknowledges a beautiful name full of intent of people living here and others visiting here. That intent gives us an idea of the ancestral land usage over that long period. Mandurah, the gathering place, is unique because even today we still gather here in the most beautiful place for many important reasons. Let us embrace the notion of people being in this space as we continue to move forward as one community. Are there any apologies for tonight's meeting? No apologies? Members of the public are advised that any decision made at the meeting tonight can be revoked in accordance with the Local Government Act 1995. Therefore, members of the public should not rely on any decisions until formal notification in writing by council has been received. Are there any answers to questions taken on notice? Can you please refer to the screen? They're a bit small. They're also in the agenda, so if you can't read that, all right, we now move into public question time. Please ensure that your questions relate to the ordinary business of the city, the function of council, or the purpose of this meeting. Please note that this is an opportunity to ask questions only. No additional statements or arguments will be permitted. During public question time, members of the public are given the opportunity to ask a question of council. Council will allocate 15 minutes to public question time. Once this time has been exhausted, I may move a motion to extend public question time for a further 15 minutes. The city is committed to ensuring fair and equitable access to public question time. In accordance with council policy, each member of the public who wishes to ask a question may ask up to 3 questions. Public question time must be conducted in accordance with the City of Mandurah's standing orders. Questions must not reflect adversely on the integrity of the City of Mandurah, including an elected member, city officer or other party. When called forward to ask your question, please begin by stating your name. The City will make every attempt to provide an answer. Where this is not possible, your question will be taken on notice and a written response will be provided to you once the necessary research has been undertaken. This response will also be included in the next council agenda. I would now like to invite Mr. Buckland, please.
Gary Buckland. First of all, I'd like to apologise to the Mayor. I asked a question at the last meeting and I wasn't aware that she had not read the article that was in the paper. Anyway, I do apologise.
Thank you, Mr. Buckland.
The problem I've got with it is that it's not financial or whatever with what we're trying to do as council, but it's to do with the personnel required to do the job. And in the article, the Mayor mentioned certain things of who needed to be put into the workforce that would help with the problems we're having with the sand erosions and all the rest of it. And I just really want to do at this stage, wish that could happen tomorrow, because anybody that's been out there in recent weeks and look at the erosion that's taken place, it's just unbelievable.
It is. Mr. Buckland, your question is in relation to the senior coastal engineer, is that correct?
Yes.
Would you like to know when that position was going to start?
If you've got that information.
Yeah, can I refer that to the Director of Built and Natural Environment? Thank you, Mr. Buckland.
Thank you. Through the Mayor. So provided that position is approved through the budget process, we would be in a position to recruit for that position early in the new financial year. Thank you.
Thank you, Director of Built Natural Environment. Can I please just ask that if it does get approved and we do that, can we please let Mr Buckland know
I think I'll find out.
Yeah, we'll definitely let you know. And thank you so much for coming in tonight.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. Thank you.
I now invite Mr Gary Brown.
Thank you. Gary Brown, President of the Peel Community Mentorshed. Good evening, Mayor, councillors. Question 1, when does Council expect to receive lotteries funding for the community hub built, and what happens if you are not successful?
Thank you, Mr Brown. I'll refer that question to the Director of Place and Community.
Thank you. Through the Mayor. The City has provided preliminary information to Lottery West, and we're expecting to hear back from them after their June board meeting around some guidance of how best the City should apply. So we have not submitted a grant formally yet. We would expect to submit that grant application in July, and Lottery West can take up to 4 months to provide a reply on an application. So 4 months post-July would be the earliest. The total cost of the project, which was provided to Council last month, is about 6.7 million. That includes all of the fit out, so that's whole of project. The City will be applying to Lottery West for at least 4.45 million of that. If the City is unsuccessful in getting that full amount from Lottery West, we would need to look at options such as reducing the scope or phasing the project, or looking at alternative third parties to fund portions of the project, or a combination of all of those things. Our preliminary guidance has been that we expect we would get some funding from Lottery West, enough for a viable project.
Thank you, Director.
Yep.
Do you have a further question, Mr Brown?
Yes, thank you. As lotteries will not fully fund this project, and therefore Council will need to fund the balance, why can't the necessary upgrades be commenced to a point where Lions, men's sheds can have access and the use of funds we have, which are sufficient to complete what we need to be able to operate in the building, which will be much better than what we have now? We have found the company who installed the volleyball nets and removed them for $10,000. The nets will have a value, and the 300 cubic metres of sand also can be removed free of cost. My question is, why can't the Council use their own money now to start this work, not wait for the WA Lotteries money to come through? Thank you.
No worries. Thank you, Mr Brown. I'll refer that to the Director of Place and Community. Oh, Matt, sorry, I'll refer that to the Director of Built Natural Environment.
Through the Mayor, planning has commenced to undertake the work that Mr Brown has referred to around the decommissioning of the netting and the removal of the sand, and also minor structural repairs. So we expect that work will be commenced in the new financial year. In terms of access, so there has been limited access provided for storage of materials within the facility. In terms of operation, subject to the Lottery West grant outcome, we'll need to work with the club around how they can commence operation and what essential work needs to be done in order to facilitate that. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you. Very happy with that answer. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Mr Brown, for your time. Are there any other questions from Community and Chamber? No? If there are no further questions, I will close public question time at 5:39 p.m. As we have had no public statements or petitions or presentations or deputations, we have one leave of absence request. I won't skip through that, a very important leave of absence. What is that leave of absence?
Do you want to request it, or do you want me to say it?
Through the Mayor, I'd just like to request the 28th of July off. On that day, 50 years ago, I was born. So I'd appreciate a leave of absence from the next council meeting. Thank you.
No.
It's a difficult one. Do I have a mover and a seconder? So yes, Councillor Schumacher and Councillor Cumberworth as a seconder. Can I put that to a vote? All elected members in favour? Happy birthday, and we will miss you at the next meeting. Okay, we will move straight through to the confirmation of minutes. I now call for a mover and a second to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 26th of May 2026. Is there a mover and a seconder? Councillor Schumacher and Councillor Knight as the seconder. Can I put that to a vote? All elected members in favour? I declare that carried. I now call for a mover and a second to confirm the minutes of the special council meeting held on the 19th of May. Do we have a mover? Yes, Deputy Mayor Smith, and a seconder, Councillor Wilkins. I'll put that motion to a vote. All elected members in favour? Thank you very much. I declare that carried. We now move into what I believe is one of the most, well, I've got lots of important parts of tonight, but I believe it's a really important part to actually celebrate what happens in our community every month. And every month we invite a couple of elected members to share what they've been involved in. And today I would like to invite Councillor Wright to speak on the Men's Health Week fun run and launch of the Public Health Plan. Councillor Wright.
Through the Mayor, thank you for that. This is the third year that I've been to the Men's Health Week run and probably performed at my worst. But it was a timely reminder on the day to actually look after yourself, to all the blokes in the audience, make sure you're eating well, not drinking too much, getting positive sleep, and ensuring that you stay physically active. My quads are still killing me. Councillor Mulder absolutely took me to town during the mini race that we had between ourselves. Can I just say, though, that to the city staff who are involved in organising that event, it's always well attended. It's a fantastic day and it always highlights the importance of men getting together and actually talking through things. Obviously not while you're in the middle of a race, because I couldn't breathe. But can I just say as well, the launch of the Public Health Plan, that's a fantastic document. And yeah, I look forward to next year's event.
As do I. Thank you, Councillor Wright. And I'll also like to invite Councillor Wilkins, very proud ManPAC board member, to share something with us all. Councillor Wilkins.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry I missed the run, Councillor Wright. I slept in that morning and couldn't make it. But yeah, I recently had the opportunity, along with the Mayor and some of my fellow councillors, to attend the celebration event for the rebranding of the Mandurah Performing Arts Centre. With around 120 stakeholders, supporters and community members, the evening provided an opportunity to showcase not only the rebrand, but the improvements that the MPAC are making for the customer experience, and also the important role the MPAC plays in cultural life of Mandurah. As the Council's representative on the MPAC board, and a very proud one at that, I do want to acknowledge the significant work that was undertaken by the Mandurah Performing Arts Centre. This rebrand ultimately is about ensuring the public face of MPAC reflects the quality of what happens inside its walls every day. With a modern website, integrated ticketing system and stronger digital presence, the centre is now well positioned to continue growing audiences, supporting artists and enriching the cultural life of our community for years to come. Since the launch, the website is already up by around 20% for traffic and demonstrating stronger engagement with patrons and greater visibility of what the MPAC has to offer. The new ticketing platform has also streamlined the customer experience, making it easier for people to discover events, purchase tickets and also to support the centre. Behind the scenes, the fully integrated system is reducing administrative workload for staff, improving efficiency and allowing more time to focus on programming, audience development and also community engagement rather than manual processes. The new platform also provides greater opportunities to grow initiatives such as the Friends of MPAC memberships, subscriptions and patron engagement programs, helping them to build a stronger, more sustainable future for the centre. Whilst I thoroughly enjoyed the Shell logo that MPAC had for decades, this is a refresh, a cosmetic refresh, but it's also a strategic investment in the future of Mandurah's most important cultural institution. As long as spending time with my fellow councillors and the Mayor, one of the highlights for me was the opportunity to chat with singer-songwriter Matt Gresham, who now calls Mandurah home. What struck me most about the conversation with Matt was his comments about the venue. He spoke about performing at the MPAC shortly after a sold-out show at Sydney Opera House and reflected on how highly he regards the Mandurah Performing Arts Centre. He spoke about the quality of the venue and how it compares favourably with many others that he has performed in around Australia and internationally. For an artist who has performed on some of the world's great stages, to speak so highly of MPAC is something our community should be incredibly proud of, and we should too as a council. It reinforces what many of us already know, that MPAC is far more than just a local theatre. It is a venue capable of attracting outstanding talent and delivering world-class experiences right in Mandurah. I'd just like to congratulate the MPAC team. They've worked incredibly hard, all the staff, on bringing this project to life, and really look forward to seeing the benefits continue to unfold. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor Wilkins, and it was definitely a very exciting launch. And now I have the very great pleasure to acknowledge tonight's local legend. Tonight, it is a pleasure to recognise someone who has given so much to our community in such a generous and creative way. Tonight's local legend is Louise Helfgott. Louise is an award-winning writer, playwright, poet, musician and counsellor. Her work has been recognised nationally and internationally, including her recent book, Thistledown Seed, which was shortlisted in the WA Premier's Book Awards. But it is at a community level where Louise's contribution really stands out. Through her work at Coolbardie's Talking Group, she has helped create a safe and respectful space for Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal women to come together, share stories, listen deeply and feel genuinely heard. She brings people together in a way that is often quiet, but deeply human. Louise has also played an important role in our community's understanding around anti-Semitism and respect. Through her schools and community forums, her focus is on bringing people together where there is division and creating space for honest conversations where there has been silence or tension. She stands as a steady bridge between views that are too often pulled apart by hate. Louise is also a generous mentor and teacher, supporting students, young people and emerging writers to find their voice and to use their voice for good. Perhaps most of all, she does all of this without fanfare. And it's funny, this week I caught up with Paddy Creevy and her words about you were the fact that you never seek recognition, and there's so much that you've done and continue to do for our city that I think many of us will never understand or comprehend. I think that's a real attribute to who you are as a person, Louise. Louise shows up consistently, thoughtfully and with a real purpose in helping people feel seen and reminding us that even when experiences differ, there was always something that connects us. So tonight, Louise, we really do thank you for your creativity, for your enormous courage and for the care that you bring to our city. On behalf of the council, it is an absolute privilege to recognise you as the very deserving recipient of this month's local legend. Can we just give Louise a massive round of applause? Louise's work spans actual decades, and I just don't think any of us will ever be able to comprehend that. So thank you so very much, Louise, for everything that you continue to do. And most of that work is unseen, but it's definitely felt in the way that our community wants to honour you in this particular moment. I'm going to give you your award. We've already had a photo, but I'll grab you your award. And like I said before the meeting, Louise, you do not have to stay for the entire meeting unless you really, really want to. But we understand it's a great time on a Tuesday night, so make yourself comfortable. We now move into declarations of interest. Elected members and officers are now asked to declare any real or perceived interest they may have in respect to the reports listed for consideration for tonight's meeting. Should an elected member or officer declare an interest, I would remind them of the need to leave the chamber immediately prior to that item's discussion. CEO, have you received any declarations of interest for tonight's meeting?
Thank you, Mayor. I have received a declaration of interest for impartiality for item 19.3 for Daniel Wilkins, as he's a council representative of the Manpack Board. I've also received a proximity interest from yourself, the Mayor, as you own a property in the vicinity of the proposed capital works for a roundabout, and we will deal with that item in two parts as a result. And a declaration of interest of impartiality for Councillor Jacob Cumberworth and Deputy Mayor Jess Smith for 19.4, the report disposal reserve 37304, 1 Thisbe Drive, Dawesville, the Port Bivard Recreation and Sport Club, as they are both members.
Can I just ask elected members, do you have any other declarations of interest for tonight's meeting? If there are none, I'll move to the next item. Item 16, questions from elected members. I haven't received any questions. Are there any questions from elected members? Oh, sorry, we have received some questions. I'll just refer to the CEO.
Thank you. We have received questions from Councillor Burns with notice. And Councillor Burns, would you like to take them as read, or would you like to read them out?
Through the chair, CEO, I'll take them as read. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burns.
And just to confirm, they will be in the minutes as well.
Thank you, CEO. Are there any other questions from elected members for tonight's meeting? Yes, without notice. Thank you, Councillor Wilkins.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you to the relevant officer. Given the significant level of community interest in the proposed place of worship on Lakes Road and the potential of residents only just being made aware of the proposal, will the City consider extending the public consultation period beyond July 3 to ensure residents have a reasonable opportunity to review the application and provide informed feedback?
Thank you, Councillor Wilkins. I'll refer that to the Director of Strategy and Economic Development.
Yes, we will consider it depending on the submissions and those that come in. We've already extended it once, but I'm happy to consider a further extension should the number of submissions in question we receive merit that.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Burns.
Thank you, Chair. By way of context, I understand this report includes the monthly financial report, but the recommendation also asks Council to approve operating carryovers in the 2026-27 financial year. Given the broader financial pressures on ratepayers, the proposed rate increase through the budget process, and my consistent concern about discretionary expenditure, I want to better understand what Council is being asked to approve. Question 1. Recommendation 3 proposes carrying forward 1.851,898 million in operating expenditure into the 2026-27 financial year. Can officers confirm, in broad terms, how much of that amount is legally required, grant obligated, or already contractually committed, and how much is discretionary council-funded expenditure?
Thank you, Councillor Burns. I'll refer that to the CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. The totals for each category requested are the grant obligated projects is 229,827. The purchase orders raised, so contractually committed, is 577,025. The legislative requirements, 299,567. Council committee decisions or included in business in the strategies, plans endorsed by Council, 572,478. And then the projects not commenced is 173,000.
Thank you, CEO. Councillor Burns.
Follow-up,
further question.
not a follow-up.
Further question, yes.
A further question. Thank you. Attachment 2 appears to include a number of discretionary or non-core operating projects, including items relating to activation, cultural programs, public art, youth programming, heritage communication, strategic projects. Can officers confirm whether council is required to carry forward those discretionary items tonight, or whether council could choose not to carry them forward without breaching a legal, grant or contractual obligation?
Thank you very much, Councillor Burns. I'll refer that to the CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. As I mentioned before, the different breakdowns of that expenditure and maybe your interpretation of discretionary versus those breakdowns may differ after that response that I provided you. However, council, if the council decide not to carry forward those projects, depending on which project is not supported, will depend on the city's contractual, financial and strategic plan obligations.
Thank you, CEO. Further question, Councillor Burns? No. No worries. Any other questions from elected members without notice? Yes, Councillor Wilkins.
Thank you, Mayor. Just in regards to the men's shed, how reliant is the city on the alignment of the men's shed groups, and what impact will there be if the Mandurah men's shed and Peel Community men's shed are unable to work together?
Thank you, Councillor Wilkins. I'll refer that to the Director of Place and Community.
Thank you, through the Mayor. The city has consistently advised the Mandurah men's shed and the Peel Community men's shed that in the solution that's being found to find them both a new home, that the city will only offer one tenancy arrangement. So those two groups we're not prescribing how they come together. They could choose to amalgamate. They could choose for one to completely dissolve and come under the wing of the other one. They could both decide to dissolve and create a brand new incorporated entity and start fresh together in a new space. If there are irreconcilable differences between the two men's sheds, then the city would look to potentially do an expression of interest and award it to one. That would not be the most favourable option. These two groups operate very differently, but they do both operate within, I guess, the guidelines of the WA Men's Shed Association, the peak body, and with the information coming out of Curtin around what a thriving shed looks like, they would both meet a thriving shed. So it's really just working together, which city officers are hoping will be the case.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkins. Any further questions from elected members? Without notice, if there are none, we'll move to business left over from a previous meeting, which there is none. Recommendations from committees, there is also none. And then we now move into reports. I'd like to move into report 19.1, the Corporate Business Plan 2026 to 2030, which sets out the key projects, programs and services the city will deliver and how priorities from the Strategic Community Plan will be put into action. The officer's recommendation is on screen. Do I have a mover? Yes. Deputy Mayor Smith. Seconder? Yeah, Councillor Wilkins. Deputy Mayor Smith, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, through the Mayor. Council endorsed the Corporate Business Plan 2025 to 2029 in June 25. I recall moving the motion to adopt the plan last year. It's encouraging to review the updated document a year later to see the advancements of key initiatives and priorities. Under Regulation 19DA of the Local Government Regs 96, the City is obliged to conduct a yearly review of its corporate business plan. The plan translates the 20-year Strategic Community Plan, so that's 2024 to 2044, into action by detailing the priority projects, programs and services the City intends to deliver, and this should align yearly with the budget process. Input from staff across all areas of the organisation have been gathered to assess current priorities, service delivery activities, key initiatives and performance indicators. This collective review has informed the preparation of the Corporate Business Plan 26 to 30, ensuring it reflects the city's strategic objectives and operational commitments. The plan identifies the 4 key pillars of economy, environment, community and leadership, and I particularly appreciate the inclusion of the measures of success as they clearly articulate how outcomes will be assessed and enable council to effectively monitor progress and evaluate achievements against the plan's objectives. So the delivery against the corporate business plan, including progress towards these key actions and milestones, is regularly reported through the city's quarterly performance reports. These reports are made publicly available via the city's website to ensure transparency and accountability. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Smith. Councillor Wilkins, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. Not a lot more to say after following Deputy Mayor, but yeah, this plan provides a clear roadmap of how we deliver on the aspirations and priorities of our communities, identified through the strategic community plan. It ensures we remain focused on delivering practical outcomes while maintaining responsible financial management and transparency. There's a number of exciting projects included in this plan that will help shape Mandurah's future. The continued enhancement of our family-friendly Western Foreshore Leisure Precinct is a great example of investing in community spaces that residents and visitors can enjoy for generations to come. And I'm particularly excited about the future of the former bowling club site. It's a site that I drive past every day, and every time I do, I'm reminded of the incredible opportunity it presents. It has the potential of becoming something truly special for our community and play an important role in the ongoing revitalisation of our city centre. Most importantly, this plan demonstrates our commitment to being adaptive and responsive to changing needs of our community while remaining accountable through regular public reporting on our process. I look forward to seeing some of these projects and initiatives come to life over the coming years, and we will continue working towards a stronger and more vibrant Mandurah. So I support the document.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkins. Do I have somebody who wishes to speak against? Yes.
Questions, if I'm
Yes, Councillor Burns.
Thank you, Chair, and I assure you it's pivotal to how I view this report. Under the comments section of the report, point 4 states that the review incorporated updates made to the city's long-term financial plan and annual budget. It's page 9 of the 764-page document. Given council is yet to formally consider and adopt the long-term financial plan and annual budget, can the CEO explain why council has been asked to consider and adopt the corporate business plan before those 2 documents have been considered?
Thank you, Councillor Burns. I'll refer that to the CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. It could also be considered the other way around as well. So without endorsing the corporate business plan first, then council would then have a you'd be required to amend the long-term financial plan and the budget, depending on whether there was an action in the corporate business plan that was meant to be delivered in year 1. That would then have to be amended. So it is the corporate business plan is in terms of the hierarchy of our strategic framework, that comes under the community plan, strategic community plan, and then the informing strategies are the long-term financial plan and the budget. So this is the next layer below the strategic community plan.
Thank you, Councillor Schumacher. Follow-up question.
So the issue then really is the wording of point 4 then, because it leads me to believe that the administration put the long-term financial plan and annual budget in front of the plan, or is that just my interpretation? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burns. Sorry, Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you, through the Chair, to the relevant officer. Under the corporate business plan, where do the economic grants, the City Centre Business Incentive Scheme, grants, under which area do they fall in the corporate business plan, please?
Thank you, Councillor Schumacher. I'll refer that to the Director of Strategy and Economic Development.
I might start, if that's all right, through the Chair. It would fall within the budgeted programs. So in the first section, there's reports. And then from page 18 of the council report, there is, after the projects, there's a budget of programs. And the director will add which line item that relates to.
Thank you, Director.
Yeah, that is project or budgeted programs EC04 on page 18, city centre activation.
Thank you, Director. Thank you very much, Councillor Schumacher. Councillor Mulder, would you like to speak against the officer's recommendation?
Thank you, Mayor. In short, I do not support the planned 2026-27 expenditure on the Western Foreshore Leisure Precinct, given that it does not have approval and is currently out of Council's hands, being with the state government for consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Mulder. Is there anyone else wishing to speak for the officer's recommendation? If not, I will put that to a vote. All elected members... Oh, sorry. Do you want to close? I'm so sorry, Deputy.
Not a problem. I could have a little closing. Just in finalising, the corporate business plan provides a framework for delivering the objectives of the strategic community plan. It does this through translating community priorities and aspirations into practical actions and outcomes, reflecting current organisational commitments, strategic priorities and external influences that affect resource allocation. It also does this through aligning and coordinating service delivery, operational activities and business unit planning across the organisation. I will be supporting the officer's recommendation to approve the City of Mandurah's corporate business plan for adoption, noting the city officers will provide quarterly reporting against the corporate business plan, and I encourage my fellow councillors to do so.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Smith. I'll put that to a vote. All elected members in favour, please raise your hand. All elected members against? I declare that carried. We now move to report 19.3, the budget adoption. Two? Oh, sorry, my bad. I know, I'm so excited, I'm just jumping ahead. We now move to report 19.2, adoption of the 2027 to 2036 long-term financial plan and council financial position and performance policy. The council will now consider adopting the city's long-term financial plan through to 2036. This plan looks ahead at future costs, risks and priorities, helping guide financial decisions and ensure the city remains sustainable over that long period of time. I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation, which is up on the screen. Do I have a seconder? Yep, Councillor Cumberworth, thank you. Every road that we drive on, every sporting facility our children use, every park, playground and community service our residents rely on exists because previous councils planned for the future. Tonight we have the opportunity to do the same, and for that reason I'm very pleased to move the officer's recommendation to adopt the long-term financial plan. This plan is one of the most important documents council considers because it sets the long-term financial framework within which all of our annual budgets sit. If the budget is about today's choices, the long-term financial plan is about understanding the consequences of those choices over time. It allows us to see the full picture, not just the immediate impact of decisions, but their effect across years and even decades. It ensures we are not making decisions in isolation, but with a clear understanding of what they mean for future councils and future generations. For example, a decision such as a 0% rate increase may appear manageable in the short term, but this plan shows us that the long-term impact over 10 years, that single decision results in almost $30 million less in revenue. That is the value of this document. It turns short-term decisions into long-term understanding, and with that understanding comes responsibility. Good governance requires us to consider not only the immediate impact of our decisions, but also their long-term consequences. The long-term financial plan asks us to look beyond the next budget cycle and beyond the next election. It asks us to make decisions that may not always be popular in the short term, but are necessary if we are to leave the city in a stronger position than how we found it. The plan clearly identifies that we are facing significant long-term financial challenges that must be actively managed if we are to maintain service levels, renew our assets, and ensure ongoing financial sustainability. It also reinforces the importance of the 0.68% asset renewal contribution adopted in 2021 as a staged and responsible approach to addressing historic underinvestment in our assets. This is about ensuring we progressively close the gap between what we collect and what we are required to properly renew the infrastructure our community depends on. Because the reality is this: if we do not continue to act, if we do not continue to grow revenue and continue to drive operating efficiencies, then over time we will see increasing pressures on asset condition, growing renewal backlogs, and impacts on service delivery. And I don't believe that is a position this council should leave on to future councils. This plan is not static. It's been workshopped extensively with council throughout the year. It has also been informed by community feedback through public consultation, with most recently 125 submissions received across multiple different channels. That input has strengthened our understanding of community expectations. At its core, this plan is about stewardship. It ensures we are not just focused on what is affordable today, but on what is sustainable tomorrow. It is about ensuring that the infrastructure we enjoy today is still there for the next generation, that services remain sustainable, and that the future council inherits options rather than problems. Good financial management is not about avoiding difficult decisions. It is about making considered decisions today so our community continues to benefit from them tomorrow. That is why I commend this long-term financial plan to council. Councillor Cumberworth, would you like to speak to the officer's recommendation?
Australia is in a cost of living crisis at the moment, and everybody is pointing the finger. We have seen supermarkets under scrutiny, federal and state governments under scrutiny, and I have scrutinised this long-term financial plan. I've singled out individual items of expenditure and I've investigated them. I have not found anything so far that has led me to believe that we are not operating this city in a fiduciarily responsible manner. We should not burn down our own house because of the challenges being faced in the outside world. As far as I'm concerned, steady as she goes, this city is being managed appropriately and it is a beautiful city. I got into council because I thought things could be done better, and once I've got involved, I started looking closer at neighbouring jurisdictions and I realised how lucky we are here. I'm happy to support this long-term financial plan. I'm sure that there are improvements to be made in the future as we continue to work together. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Councillor Cumberworth. Yes, Councillor Sherman, would you like to speak against? No worries, you can speak against.
Thank you, through the chair. I do wish to speak against the long-term financial plan, and I'll start off by going in the summary, the executive summary. It states, to remain strong leaders and ambitious for our people and community, any lower rate path must be matched by an explicit alternative commitment. Either rescope priorities, accept lower service standards, which we won't, or secure additional external funding so ambition is delivered without shifting cost and risk to future budgets and ratepayers. This is where we have to focus on what is our core businesses. The New Zealand government in July 1995 passed a bill which was brought about to ensure that councils supplied the core businesses in accordance to the government so that they would avoid unnecessary expenditure at the cost of ratepayers. This was brought in by Minister Simon Watts, who said the local government, the Systems Improvement Amendment Bill, would help restore discipline and transparency and push councils to focus on things like roading core infrastructure. He stated the Kiwis are frustrated with rising rates, expanding bureaucracy and poor value for money. This bill puts back to work on the basics, their core services, so ratepayers see results for what they pay. This is where I think, and I would say it's actually no fault of local government. I think with the local government, as a local government, we have to follow 24 state government legislations or acts, which does put an enormous cost expense on ratepayers, and ones which ratepayers don't get to see where that money's going. However, we need to rein in our own discretionary spending and focus on what we need, not what we think we want or what we think some people want. So there is other issues, and Councillor Mulder spoke about in the last, the business, corporate business plan. We're talking about in the next 3 years, over $4 million being spent on the Western Foreshore. I totally agree and absolutely am for the money, which is approximately 800,000, I think it is, on the foreshore to protect that and make it safe. But I have a real issue of spending over $4 million on a project, which is private enterprise, which may not occur. So I am, again, my thing here is we do need to focus more than ever on our core businesses, our core business that the people expect us to deliver. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schumacher. I just have a question for the CEO regarding Councillor Schumacher's statement regarding $4 million. Are you able to give me a breakdown of what that actually entails?
Through Mayor, I don't have the exact questioning, but all of the expenditure that's included in the improvements for the roundabout and the intersection of Leighton Place, that's not considered as part of the commercial project itself. That's actually considered as part of the leisure precinct. So there are two in the corporate business plan. There are 3 different projects. One is the Western Foreshore Leisure Precinct, which talks about development of the public open space area and the roads, which is what Councillor Shoemaker is talking about. It doesn't relate to the specific commercial project. The second one is the coastal protection and water infrastructure, and that has to occur regardless of whether the commercial project occurs. So both those 2 items are regardless of whether whether that occurs. The third item, which talks about the Western Foreshore commercial site, which is estimated to spend $39,000 next year, is directly related to the project.
Thank you, CEO. Anyone else wishing to speak for the officer's recommendation? Yes, Councillor Wright.
Through the chair. Look, I'd just like to hear a bit more of the debate, if that's okay. Thanks.
You're speaking for? Yeah. Councillor Burns, if you'd like to speak against.
Thank you, Chair. I'm speaking against the officer's recommendation. I acknowledge that the long-term financial plan is a statutory requirement and an important part of City's planning framework. I also support responsible financial management, asset renewal, and ensuring we do not unfairly shift financial burdens onto future ratepayers. But I cannot support this long-term financial plan, and the reason is simple. Year 1 of this plan is the annual budget before us tonight, including the proposed rate increases. If I cannot support the budget and the proposed increase in rates for 26-27, then I cannot consistently support a long-term financial plan that incorporates that budget and assumes a similar financial approach for the next 9 years. The long-term financial plan sets the direction. It embeds assumptions. It signals Council's preferred financial path. And my concern is that plan continues to assume that existing service levels, programs, expenditure largely continue by default with only modest savings and efficiencies. I believe that approach places the burden of proof on the wrong people. Ratepayers should not have to justify keeping more of their own money. Council should have to justify taking more. Rates are not voluntary contributions. They are compulsory charges imposed on households and businesses. People cannot opt out, and that creates a significant moral responsibility. Before asking ratepayers to pay more, council should be satisfied that every reasonable efficiency, service review, reprioritisation and deferral has already been explored. The burden of proof should rest with those proposing to increase rates, not those arguing for restraint. I recognise that officers have already delivered savings and efficiencies, and I acknowledge those efforts. However, I remain unconvinced that the strongest possible savings effort has yet occurred, and that the current scale and scope of city activities has been sufficiently challenged. This is particularly important given the continuing cost of living pressures facing our community. It is often argued that these increases amount to only a few dollars a week. For many households, that may be true. But public policy should always be conscious of those on the margins. Mandurah has disproportionately elderly and lower income population. Many residents are experiencing mortgage stress, rental stress and rising costs for essentials such as power, insurance and groceries. For those already struggling, every additional compulsory charge matters. The people on the margins are precisely the people we should be most careful not to burden. This is not an argument about neglecting assets, increasing debt or cutting core services. My position has been consistent for several years. I support a lower rate path because I believe it creates stronger incentives to find efficiencies, challenge inherited assumptions, reprioritise expenditure and focus on the delivery of essential services. Savings first, scrutiny first, service review first. Then council can determine any increase in rates genuinely necessary. My concern that this long-term financial plan locks in too much and questions too little. For those reasons, I cannot support the officer recommendation. And should this motion fail, I foreshadow my intention to support an alternative motion consistent with a 0% increase in rates for 26-27. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor Burns. Is there anyone else wishing to speak for? If there's not, I will close the debate. I just want to start by saying that I hear you, Councillor Burns, and I believe it's really important to acknowledge that everybody around this table wants the same outcome. We all want an efficient organisation. We all want affordable rates and strong services for our community. As Mayor, I spend a lot of my time in our community. I spend a lot of our time in our facilities and showing up to the different services that our city provides. And I have to say that those people on the margins are the ones that access those services and facilities most. There are people that are really struggling in Mandurah, and I totally appreciate the idea of having a 0% rate increase. I think that would be, wonderful, but I also think that to me is not good stewardship when at the moment people are relying on services, they are relying on the extras. I don't think they're things that we cut when people are actually, that is their connection, that is their belonging, that is their getting out of their house and participating in something that would cost them money, but because our city's providing it, they can do it and it doesn't cost them anything. We're talking about the health run on the weekend and seeing our community be able to come together and participate in something that's building those connections when we have people that are isolated because they can't afford petrol and they can't afford to go out. There are mental health challenges. I think that is really important work. And yes, like Councillor Cumberworth said, we can point the finger. We can say that's state government's responsibility, that's federal government's responsibility. We can, I get all of those things, but as a collective, we have had a long amount of time to work through this long-term financial plan with officers. I think the staff have done a remarkable job. I'm really impressed with the calibre of people that work at the city, and I think acknowledging that they have looked at the different programs, we have looked at the different programs, services, facilities. It's a document that we've all worked on. So I wholeheartedly support the long-term financial plan. And I just want to reiterate that I know that everybody around this table cares about Mandurah. So I'm going to put that to a vote. All elected members in favour of the officer's recommendation, please raise your hand. Those elected members against the officer's recommendation, please raise your hand. I declare that carried. So now we move to the part where I was before, and I was preempting because I'm going to be stepping out for this particular part of the report. We move report 19.3, the budget adoption. The item is before you on the screen. We're going to actually do this in two parts. Part A will deal with the matter where I have declared the proximity interest, and Part B will deal with the rest of the items. So because of that, I'm going to hand over to Deputy Mayor Smith, and I'll step out of the room. Thank you.
Thank you. I unfortunately do not get to wear the chains this evening. I would like to put forward the officer's recommendation that Council approve the capital work, Lake Valley Drive and Badrup Avenue capital expenditure as on the screen. Do I have a mover and a seconder for Part A report 19.3? Moving, thank you, Councillor Knight, and seconder, Councillor Wright. Thank you. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you. I think it's fairly straightforward. It's a capital works project in the north, a roundabout, so I don't think there's anything more to add.
Thank you. Would you like to speak, Councillor Wright?
Through the chair, no, thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone wishing to speak against the item? Questions? No, I'll put that to the vote. Okay.
What is the nature of the works, please? I understand it's a roundabout. Is it a replacement of the existing or a change in design?
Thank you. I'll direct that to the Director of Built and Natural Environment.
Through the Mayor, there's modifications needed to improve safety at the roundabout. There's been an ongoing accident history. So these works are to improve the vehicle or reduce vehicle speeds on approach to the roundabout and improve the overall safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there no one wishing to speak against? I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? I declare that carried. Thank you.
All right, I'll say thank you, Deputy Mayor Smith. And we will move to Part B. The officer's recommendation is on the screen, and I am happy to move the officer's recommendation. Is there somebody wishing to second the officer's recommendation? Councillor Wright? So I'm pleased to move the officer's recommendation to adopt this budget. When I look at this budget, I don't see numbers on a page. I see the countless hours behind the work. The workshops, the briefings, the debates and the difficult decisions. I see elected members willing to challenge assumptions and ask tough questions. I see staff who work tirelessly to find efficiencies and deliver value. Most of all, I see a budget that reflects our shared commitment to being a careful stewards of our community's money and to building a stronger community in Mandurah. This budget is the result of collective effort by people who genuinely care about this city and who care deeply about what Mandurah looks like today, tomorrow and for generations to come. As I shared at last month's council meeting, my connection to Mandurah is deeply personal. I moved here when I was 13 years old. I lived at Lucky Caravan Park and attended Mandurah High School. I started my first job just before my 14th birthday, and by the time I was 15, I was working 3 jobs. Every role I've had since graduating high school has involved serving and caring for our community. I ran for mayor because I've seen the absolute best of Mandurah, and I've also seen the many challenges that our city faces. I want more for my children, but more than that, I want more for everybody's children. This is why this budget is important. To me, this budget asks an important question: how do we continue delivering the services, infrastructure and support our community relies on when the costs of everything continues to rise? I would like to thank my fellow elected members for their contribution throughout the budget process. Over the past 8 months, every councillor has brought their own perspective, experiences, passion and dedication to their role. I want to let our community know that you have got some extraordinary representatives around this table. I also want to thank our community for electing such a diverse and capable and balanced council. While we may not always agree on every issue, and I think it's good that we don't, I have great respect for every person sitting around this table because I know each of them serves this community with the very best interest at heart. I also want to acknowledge and thank our CEO, executive team, officers and staff across every department of this city. Significant work has gone into identifying efficiencies, challenging existing practices and ensuring every dollar is being used as effectively as possible. In my opinion, Mandurah is without a doubt the best place in the world. It is a city full of opportunity, resilience and potential. As a community, we continue to grow. And as we grow, we must continue to invest in the infrastructure we already have while planning responsibly for what comes next. We must continue delivering the services our community depends upon. We must continue supporting our parks, our reserves, our rangers services, our community facilities and all the programs that help make Mandurah such a great place to live. At the same time, we have to have a responsibility to the future generations. We can not simply defer difficult decisions and leave the costs to those who come after us. Roads age, buildings reach end of life, community expectations definitely do evolve. The pressures on local government continue to increase. The reality is that things are not getting any easier at the moment. Costs are going to continue to rise and assets will continue to require renewal. Demand for our services, without a doubt, will continue to grow. But what gives me confidence is that this budget reflects a collective commitment to meeting those challenges head on. It balances today's needs with tomorrow's responsibilities. It invests in our community while maintaining a strong focus on financial sustainability. Most importantly, it reflects our shared belief that Mandurah deserves the very best we can give it. And I'm very proud that we are doing this work. I commend it to Council. As a seconder, Councillor Wright, would you like to speak to the item?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair. I recently had a bit of positive feedback from the community. One of the residents on Parkview Street whose drainage has just been completed. Often on council, we can get stuck in the budget side of things, and that one piece of drainage on Parkview is just a line item for us. It's a project and it's a cost. For this resident and for the other residents on Parkview, it was something much simpler for them. For the last, well, actually, since I've been on council, for every winter since then, these residents have felt anxiety over what was coming, anxiety when that first rain would arrive and their street would start to flood. And when I spoke to him, he certainly had confidence that this year his voice had been listened to. Definitely felt that he'd been listened to, definitely felt that someone else had cared. But more importantly, it also shows us about our strategic community plan, which I believe had around 2,000 touch points. That informs our corporate business plan, which informs our long-term financial plan, and it informs what we do as a council. And as a council, as Councillor Burns has just mentioned, we do scrutinise our spending, we do look for savings, and I commend the officers for finding these savings throughout the year. We often talk about the budgets in terms of percentages, in terms of revenue, in terms of capital expenditure, capital works, but residents don't experience them that way at all, other than once a year when they get their rates notice. Usually the experience comes for them when the drainage is fixed, when the playground that they love taking their kid to gets an upgrade, when kids use a sporting facility, when the family visits a library, or when they enjoy a community event that we put on around the town. The outcomes don't happen by accident, they happen due to previous councils having planned carefully for the future and for us taking on board that long-standing stewardship in such a wonderful place as Mandurah is and recognising that we've got the same type of job to do. So I want to thank the officers for putting together tonight's package. I want to thank the officers for their careful scrutiny of the spending that has occurred through the year and for putting forward to us something that I think is a reasonable rate expectation given all circumstances at the moment around the world. I believe it enables us to maintain our services and maintain what our community expects for future generations. It ensures we have financial sustainability moving forward, and it 100% delivers outcomes to our residents. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Elected members wishing to speak against. Councillor Mulder.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the promises I made when I ran for council was to fight to minimise rates, and keeping promises matters. I have demonstrated in other forums how modest savings in our capital expenditure would reduce the proposed rate rises. We can achieve this without compromising on service levels and while still delivering the required asset investment in our city. It's my hope that in time the majority of elected members will support this initiative to reduce rates. I also wish to speak against the proposed Southport Canal specified area rates. The Southport Canal's specified area rate is being imposed on property owners who, when they purchased their property over the last decade or so, were not made aware of this additional fee. There's a question of fairness here. I'd like to see the introduction of a SAR for these residents paused while we gather hard data on management costs, especially dredging requirements. Meantime, the estimated management cost amounts to, on average, 10 cents per year per manager ratepayer. I believe we can manage that.
Thank you, Councillor Mulder. Is there anyone else wishing to speak for the officer's recommendation? Yes, Councillor Green.
Thank you, Mayor. It gives me pleasure to address this particular recommendation. I am a ratepayer myself, and I get that the community can relate to the rate cost of 4.98% against the value of their home, making them quite anxious. However, the budget and the rates that we're initiating also provide services that go beyond just basic home needs. They're based on our corporate business plan and our long-term financial plan, which is obviously, projected against what the community has indicated that they would like for our region. I feel that the budget takes into consideration the projected costs of 26-27. Those costs are through operational services, which is our expenditure, and our capital expenditure, which is our equipment expenditure. I have noted a lot of the expenditure is now driven by government legislation and compliance. They are the invisible costs, such as insurance, which covers public liability, professional indemnity and storm damage. Goodness knows my home insurance has gone up from $900 to $1,200, which is a 30% increase for a fairly modest home. And I think that local government is not immune from those increased costs. They're also the invisible costs are the energy costs, which is associated with street lighting that people prefer to have running all night. It also the energy goes towards the office lighting and the air conditioning throughout the council. There's also employee training, which is mandatory, mental health checks mandatory, access and inclusion legislated. The big one coming up and has been adopted, of course, is cybersecurity, which is through our CCTV and computer to prevent computer hacking. These are the services that people don't get to see. And let's not forget the depot, the vehicles that require occupational health and safety, ergonomic cab fit-outs, licences, maintenance, petrol, fuel costs, traffic controllers, ranger services, mosquito management, and boy, do we have, people contacting us about a mosquito when it's not under management. Parks and gardens, estuary management and marine health, libraries, museums. The men's shed have already indicated their proposal for a men's shed. And then there's the Falcon one as well. Then we have the Aquatic Centre and Entertainment Centre. So these are all the non-seen services that Mandurah provides that is not tangible, but it still adds to our budget. And I just want to add that the other thing that we need to consider in our rates is the exemptions for our rates. And those include charitable organisations. These are The exemptions are ratified through the Local Government Act 1995 and therefore cannot be rated. These include charitable organisations such as Vinnie's, Salvation Army, the food banks, the senior citizens, and also the education exemptions, the library and the museum. The total value of that is $3,040,086. That's quite a large shortfall. Then there's the total value of deferred rates that are offset through estate probate, or which can be brought back in through caveat return on selling property, but that's another $1,500,000 odd dollars, of which we do get a $65,000 per annum rebate. So there's a huge shortfall. This rate revenue shortfall has a direct impact on the financial requirements by the city's community planning and infrastructure provisions. Ultimately, the burden of the shortfall is then made up by the community resident and home owner through the rate system services. However, those services have been established due to the community's sense of caring for those in need, a compassionate appeal for those less fortunate, and a place with services that provide engagement and contact and the opportunity for our youth, parents, our children, sports and art enthusiasts and our seniors to benefit from those particular services. That is what Mandurah is about, and that's why we are the heart of Mandurah. And so I support the rate increase, which is based on the long-term financial plan rating principle, so that there is an even spread of expenditure to meet those future needs. And I would hope that you would follow suit. Thank you very much.
Very impassioned there, Councillor Green. Thank you very much. Anyone wishing to speak against? Yes, Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, through the chair. And I do acknowledge that the city does do good work, and I acknowledge the CEO and staff for finding the cost savings that they have over the last 12 months and their commitment to finding cost savings in the future. The fact is, it's just not enough. We need to find better efficiencies, and we need to strive for those every day. As I said earlier, we need to stick to our core businesses, the ones that make a difference to the majority. And yes, there's those that are in the minority that need help. However, we've got to face the facts. We need to look after the majority of people. The amount of people that are struggling to pay their mortgage, to keep a roof over their head, is phenomenal, and I think we all know that. And listening, and I read all the comments, many of them, hundreds of them. I've got one here about council accountability before rate increases. Council should demonstrate organisational efficiency, well, we won't say that one, reduce discretionary spending and pursue alternative funding, which I know we do. Focus on, again, another one, focus on efficiency over rate increases, reduce unnecessary spending, prioritise essential services, explore grants and alternative funding. Many households already struggling with the cost of living. This is throughout all the feedback that we got. People pushing for 0%, and yet 0% would put us in the future in a predicament. But I don't think we need to go to 4.95 either. There's several other things that I am concerned about. And if we look at the spending, which I'll just find that, here we go. Our revenue to June 30th, 2027 was estimated to be $167,733,637. Of that, employee costs are $64,872,671. It's 40+% of our revenue. And I'm not threatening jobs or anything, please don't think I am, but a private company, in the commercial sector just wouldn't be happy with that sort of operating costs. So that's one thing, and I don't know how we can do that. I know the City of Mandurah staff are under the pump at the moment, and the demands on the staff are huge, and I would say more than likely because of state government legislative requirements. I do have an issue in going to the fees and charges. Well, I'll talk about the payment plans. A lot of people, as times get tough, will go on payment plans, and yet I find it upsetting to think that we are going to charge them 5.5% interest if they take an instalment plan. More money they've got to find. If they struggle during the time of the payment plan and they come back to the city to ask for change the arrangement, that will cost $27.50. Another charge. If they don't pay their instalments on time, then it then goes to 7% and costs of proceeding to recover such charges. These are all extra costs, all extra money for people that are struggling. And I don't believe that's right. I've missed one page here. Then we've got item 13 of the recommendation states approves that from the 8th of September 2026, interest will be charged at an interest rate of 7% and costs of proceeding to recover such damage on all rates and charges that remain unpaid after becoming due and payable in accordance with section 6.5. But my thing, I understand these repayments go up to March next year. So I don't understand why, and the CEO may want to comment, as to why we've got approves that from 8th of September 2026. Was that for debts for the 25-26 period? Actually, could you comment on that before I keep going, please?
Thank you, Councillor Schumacher.
I haven't finished yet, but...
do you want to finish and then we'll get the comment?
Yeah, okay, thank you. And the fees and charges, and I also do note that the Salary and Allowance Tribunal has given us a 3.5% increase. So not quite as much as our Prime Minister, but there you go. The other thing that I have is regards to fees, and I see with the Waste Alliance, we have an increased budget for 26-27 for illegal dumping and dead animals of 304,000 versus last year budget of $170,000. And I look at the waste fees that our green waste, which we have the 2 green waste vouchers and 2 general waste vouchers, that they are only up to 1 cubic metre. Now, if we're talking about 300,000 for illegal dumping, we have a 22% uptake on the tip passes, then why don't we just increase the 1 cubic metre under 1 tip pass to 2 cubic metres?
We can answer.
I know that that's one that can't be dealt with right now. But at the end of the day, I mean, I could read through a lot more stuff here of reports and economic position of households in our city, but we all know that. So I will be foreshadowing a rate increase, if most does get up, of 2.95%, which includes the 0.68%, which I do agree with. I think the 0.68% protects our residents in our community and our kids for the future, for asset renewal and repairs, and I think that's a good idea, but I will be foreshadowing 2.95%.
Thank you so much, Councillor Schumacher. I'll let the CEO answer your questions, and I believe that Councillor Wright also has a question. Thank you, CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. Just in relation to the 8th of September date, that is the due date that the first instalment or payment in full is due. And so that's why there is a interest charge as of that day if there is no election of the payment option. We also do provide a rate smoothing option, which if the Manager of Finance can explain any costs incurred in relation to residents, ratepayers.
Thank you. Through the Mayor. Yes, through the rate smoothing option, which runs from April to March the next year, there are no interest or fees included in those plans.
Thank you. And just in relation to some other questions that were asked, in relation to interest and that you were saying around how the budget is then calculated, there is a budget item of revenue for interest income. If council chose to not charge any interest, then the revenue that is already budgeted for interest, that would then become zero, and that would require additional rate income to be generated as a result of the reduction in that line item. So, so what we do is we work out the total revenue, and then we need to offset that with the total expenditure. If we reduce anything in the revenue, then there is other revenue items, we have to make that up, or we reduce our operating expenditure to do that. The question around the tip passes, we don't budget that every ratepayer is going to utilise those tip passes. So if council were to increase the options that are available or change the method that would result in additional charges, then the charges for a rubbish charge would have to increase as well. So council have an option that you could create, you could increase the size of your tip passes. However, that comes at a cost, which then would have to be on charge through the rubbish charges. So it's every decision that is made through council that can be done. However, there is the other side that would result in additional charges having to be imposed or reduction in other expenditure. In relation to the litter and illegal dumping plan, that is coming to council, and then council can also decide on how that plan will be endorsed and what the implementation plan of that would look like. And at that time, we'll be able to provide council with the costs of each of those activities that are available to council and the impact of future rubbish charges as well.
Thank you so much, CEO. Councillor Wright, question.
Through the chair, my question, I believe, has just been answered by the CEO and was going to be around any projected rate increase you would anticipate if you didn't charge those charges, but I can find that, what's in my mind, out later. Thanks.
I also have a question relating to previous rates in being paid. What is the percentage of people that pay their rates in full compared to the people that don't? Is that something you will take on notice? Just curious to see, yeah. Well, if there is no one else, Councillor Burns, have you got a question? Question, yes, Councillor Wilkins.
Just in regards to the suggested 2.95%, was that presented to officers prior to tonight's meeting, and if so, do we have any modelling on that to see costs?
Thank you, Councillor Wilkins. I'll refer that to the CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. No, that wasn't presented to the city. And in terms of modelling, I would just have to have a look at whether we did a 3% in year one. We have modelled that previously, and that was part of council's plan, and that represented a $52.86 yearly increase compared to a $82.72 increase with a 4.95%. It would require a reduction in service levels. There's a shortfall in year one of 2.5 million and a total shortfall over the life of the plan of 9.1 million. The additional loan borrowings could potentially address some of the gap. However, there is always a limitation on eventually the cap of loan borrowings. The option would not be sustainable in the long term, and also it doesn't achieve the ratios that the local government, the state government department provide local governments in relation to guidelines for the operating surplus ratio and the asset sustainability ratio.
Thank you, CEO. Thank you, Councillor Wilkins. A further question, Councillor Schumacher?
Thank you. Through the Chair to the CEO, you stated with regards to 3%, was close enough to 2.95, that there would have to be a reduction in services, but that's not the only way to get savings, is it?
There's really, in terms of where the city is financially, it would be a reduction in operating expenditure or an increase in operating revenue. And in terms of any other utilisation of reserves, every reserve has its own purpose and is required to be used for that, unless council resolve to use that reserve differently. And however, as we have workshopped and provided advice on, it is the operating expenditure that we would recommend to reduce due to the level of renewal investment required every year to sustain our asset portfolio.
Thank you, CEO. Question, Councillor Burns?
Thank you. Yeah, it's a question. I've prepared to speak against the rate rise, and obviously that is determined by someone speaking for, in accordance to the standing orders. I also read through there that, and perhaps a question for the CEO, that there's an amount of discretion afforded the presiding member of whether they could look past that if someone wanted to continue to speak against. Is my reading correct in that there is a fair degree of discretion for the...
Yes, you could suspend standing orders in relation to that section of the standing orders where you are required to speak of the opposing view. You are allowed to speak if there's someone to speak of the opposing view. That is correct.
Can you, offhand, tell me what that clause would be? Because I think we're obliged to state that clause. I mean, it may not be necessary given that someone might speak for and enable me the opportunity to speak against.
Yes, Councillor Cumberworth will speak for, and then we can give you the information on how to do that next time if it does come about for you, Councillor Burns.
One more question, if I may.
If you've got a question, absolutely.
If I am going to speak, and it looks like, and thanks to Councillor Cumberworth, I'll get that opportunity. I've made a statement in my preparation. I just wanted to make sure before I'm on record, I wanted to confirm that. It was similar nature to last month, and it pertains to when I look at driving efficiencies and the total operating expenses, and we've had another councillor talk about capital.
Your question?
My question is, I think it's more fair, rather than using the headline 184 million operating costs, that includes depreciation and other, with all due respect, counting smoke and mirrors. Is it more fair?
Councillor Burns, what's the question, please? You just need to, if you ask the question.
I would want to confirm the sum of about 148 million is the operating expenditure without the depreciation.
Thank you, Councillor Burns. I'll refer that to the Manager of Finance, who looks like he's doing his best to find the answer for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, through the Mayor. So the operating expenditure excluding depreciation is 148.25 million.
Thank you. Councillor Cumberworth, would you like to speak now towards the item? Thank you.
I celebrate a robust debate in this matter. In the second quarter of 2026, the world has suffered serious economic challenges, and while we may approve this budget today, things may change rapidly before the next budget review, and I'm sure there will be further discussion around finding cost savings. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor Cumberworth. Councillor Burns, you now can speak against. Yes, Councillor Burns, to speak against.
Thank you, Chair, and importantly, thank you, Councillor Cumberworth. I speak against the officer recommendation, and I acknowledge again the significant amount of work that goes into preparing the annual budget, and appreciate the staff modelling the 0% model that I would be advocating for if I had the opportunity. This is not just an administrative exercise. The annual budget matters. It sets the baseline for spending, services and expectations. It forms year one of the long-term financial plan, and the assumptions we accept tonight flows into the years ahead. So this is the moment to get the budget right. The question is whether this is the right budget at the right time with the right level of burden placed on ratepayers. I don't believe it is. The budget includes a 4.95% increase in rates as proposed. That is not just a line in a financial report. It's a real bill that will land in the mailboxes and inboxes of households and businesses across Mandurah. And for many people, it lands on top of everything else. Power, insurance, groceries, fuel, rent, mortgages, state charges, federal taxes, fees, levies, goes on and on. Every level of government adds its bit. And each time we're told it's modest, reasonable, or only a few dollars a week. But the cost of government is part of the cost of living crisis. In fact, I coined an expression, it's probably not original, but it was original to me, that we don't have a cost of living crisis, we've got a cost of government crisis. It is usually the people on the margins who feel it most. For pensioners, renters, mortgage holders, single income families, small businesses and people already stretched thin, each compulsory increase matters. Rates are not voluntary. That means we have a higher duty to justify every dollar we take. My view is simple. The burden should not be on me or on ratepayers to produce a shopping list of cuts before council shows restraint. The burden should be on those supporting higher rates to prove that the increase is necessary and that every reasonable saving, deferral, efficiency and reprioritisation has already been tested. The report tells us this budget still forecasts a deficit of around $500,000, which officers need to address during the year. It also includes a $250,000 permanent efficiency target to be found and embedded during the year. I welcome those efforts, of course I do. But we should be honest about the scale. Against operating expenditure, excluding depreciation, which is around $148 million, a $250,000 permanent efficiency target equates to approximately 0.1%, 0.17%. That's less than 1/5 of 1%. In difficult economic conditions, small businesses, family businesses and households are forced to look much harder than that. In my professional experience, a 1 or 2% efficiency target would still be considered modest in many large organisations. That does not mean crude cuts. It means broad scrutiny, targeted reviews, better procurement, questioning scope and asking whether some services or programs should be smaller, deferred, delivered differently or delivered at all. There's a mountain of discretionary expenditure in this budget of this size. Finding savings there does not mean abandoning core services. In fact, it should sharpen our focus on delivering those core services better. Every dollar saved from lower priority or discretionary spending is a dollar that can reduce pressure on rates, strengthen asset renewal, or improve the essentials people expect from local government. If we keep, and that drainage is a good example of focusing on local government core responsibilities. And I appreciated that story earlier, Councillor. If we keep accepting the current scope of spending, then growth becomes inevitable. If we want restraint, we have to start building into the budget now. For those reasons, I cannot support this budget or the 4.95% rate increase it contains. Should this motion fail, or my desire would be to foreshadow my intention to support an alternative motion for a 0% increase in rates for 2026-27.
Thank you so much, Councillor Burns. Is there anyone else wishing to speak for, or are you happy with me to close the debate? I'll close the debate. I just want to say thank you to all the elected members that have spoken during this debate. I really appreciate the dialogue. As I did say earlier, though, this budget has been months in the making. It's definitely not something that we've pulled together last minute, and it is the work of a long time of analysis, collaboration between elected members and staff, and we've had the opportunity to question every line if we wanted to. And we've also had the opportunity to, look at the assumptions and test those. I want to be really clear about what a 0% rate increase would mean, because it does sound appealing until you look at the reality. You know, as Councillor Green and others did mention, costs have definitely gone up. Wages, materials, utilities, insurance, all of it. And if we freeze rates, those costs don't disappear. They just shift the burden onto the organisation, ultimately onto the services our community relies on. And there's not a day that I won't receive a phone call or an email about a service that our community is relying on. In real terms, a 0% rate increase would mean cutting around $5.1 million from the budget immediately. I don't believe that is trimming the fat. I believe that's cutting straight into the muscle, a quote that I heard, but I thought, yeah, that's all right, sounds a bit, I'll use that one. It would mean losing things people do value, and, you know, I'm going to mention some of those things because I think it's really important to look at the diverse range of services that we provide that aren't just the facilities and the roads and the footpaths. You know, the Crab Fest, the Christmas lights, the community events, I think our community events are extraordinary. It's also, you know, potentially closing facilities. My kids play basketball at the Mark, and we are living and breathing at the Mark, and every time that roof leaks, we feel it. And I just want to say that I'm just so grateful that we have a team of people that are doing their best to make sure that roof doesn't leak so my kids can play basketball. It would mean fewer maintenance crews, slower response times, and for elected members, we all know what it feels like when we have slow response times because we get those phone calls from community. It would mean projects deferred and less investment in renewing the assets. And we look at our assets, we have so many assets in this city, and our city is growing rapidly. And that's, you know, just in year one. The compounding effect over time would be much worse. You know, I know we all want to keep rates as low as possible, but we also have a responsibility to keep Mandurah functioning, to keep this city safe and sustainable. A 0% rate increase might sound amazing, but I don't feel that that is responsible financially. And as someone who lives and breathes this city, I would feel like I wouldn't be able to go to sleep tonight aligning with my values if I did not vote in favour of the budget that is put before us, because I have had ample opportunity to question, to ask for less, to look at what we can do. And if I haven't done it by now, then it falls on me. So for me, I wholeheartedly support this budget. I want to thank again the staff, the elected members and our community for being a part of the journey. If there's one thing that I really want to make sure we do better, reading through some of the comments from community regarding this budget and our long-term financial plan, you know, there is a perception, and I think, you know, we do need to be communicating and getting community on the journey with us. We need to be ensuring that we are being transparent and that we're explaining what's happening as it's happening, so community are on the journey. So when we get to this stage, they're not questioning and feeling like we're not doing our job, because I believe as a city we are doing our absolute best to get it right, and most of the time we do get it right. So I give it to you guys now. If you want to support, please do. All councillors in favour of the budget adoption for 2026-2027, please raise your hand. All those elected members against, can you please raise your hand? I declare that carried. Just making sure that I'm on the right. Yeah, beautiful. We now move to report 19.4, Disposal Reserve 37304. Council will consider entering into a new lease with the Port Bouvard Recreation and Sporting Club. The proposed 10-year lease supports ongoing use of the Dawesville site and sets out responsibilities for maintenance, upgrades and long-term use of the facility. You can see the officer's recommendation on the screen. Can I ask for a mover and a seconder, please? Yes, Councillor Burns as a mover and Councillor Deputy Mayor Smith as a seconder. Councillor Burns, would you like to speak to the item?
Thank you, Chair. I'm, of course, happy to move the recommendation. It looks like a sensible lease agreement for a long-standing local club that has been part of the Dawesville community for many years. The report shows the club has close to 900 members, no outstanding obligations to the city, and a strong record of securing grants and investing its own funds back into the facilities. This is exactly the sort of self-sustaining community organisation we should want to support. I also welcome the greater clarity around maintenance responsibilities and asset ownership, and which should provide more certainty for both the club and the city going forward. Based on the information before us, this appears to be a fair and practical outcome for the club, the city and ratepayers. I do have a few questions regarding matters raised by the club during the lease negotiations and the calculation of the building capital contribution, which I look forward to clarifying during questions. So I'm pleased to move the recommendation.
Thank you so much, Councillor Burns. As the seconder, Deputy Mayor Smith.
Thank you very much through the chair. Not much to add after Councillor Burns has spoken, but just wanted to articulate that the Port Bouvard Rec and Sport Club is a really well-managed, highly organised and truly valued community organisation, and I'm really pleased that this agreement has finally been reached. Officers have invested considerable time over the last couple of years to ensure that this lease agreement is current and compliant and appropriately reflects the interests of all parties involved. So I'd like to acknowledge and thank the officers for their ongoing commitment and diligence in achieving the best possible outcome for the community and the club. And I'd also like to thank the club, which I'm a member of and I love, for its collaboration and willingness to work through the process to reach this positive outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Couple of questions, Councillor Burns, or is there anyone wishing to speak against? Yeah, I'll get to your questions, just seeing if there's anyone want. No, we're all here. Councillor Burns.
Through Chair, noting the letter from the President of the Port Bouvard Recreational and Sporting Club dated 20th of March 26, which was generally supportive. It requested more detailed explanation of the building capital contribution lease option by way of a city presentation to the board. Could the CEO or alternative staff confirm whether that meeting occurred and whether the board remains satisfied with the proposed lease arrangements?
Thank you so much, Councillor Burns. I'll refer that to the Director of Business Services.
Thank you, through the chair. That meeting did occur on the 18th of May, where the CEO and myself and the Director of Built and Natural Environment attended the Port Bouvard Rec and Sport board meeting. The executive team of the Port Bouvard Rec and Sport were also in attendance. We presented on the lease options, which is the one before you today, and we also presented on the building capital contribution. Following that meeting, the club advised us that they were satisfied with the lease option proposed, and they then supported us to take it to council for a decision.
Thank you, Director. Further question, Councillor Burns?
Follow up and I'll streamline it. So did that also include the other outstanding matters, such as the shared bore land issue and the liability arising from the accessibility audit report?
Thank you, Councillor Burns. I'll refer that to the Director of Business Services.
Thank you, through the chair. Yes, the meeting did include discussion on the liability matter and the bore agreement. The City of Mandurah does need to respond back to the board in relation to the final position on the bore agreement, and that will be happening in the next 2 days.
Thank you so much, Director. Thank you so much, Councillor Burns, for your questions. If there's no one wishing to speak against, I'll put that item to the vote. All elected members in favour? I declare that motion carried. We now move to report 19.5, which will be up on the screen shortly. Festivals and Events Strategy 2026-2030. Council will consider adopting a new festivals and events strategy. The strategy is shaped by community and industry feedback and sets the direction for Mandurah Events Program with a focus on growing and strengthening events over the next 5 years. The officer's recommendation is on screen. Can I ask for a mover and a seconder for the officer's recommendation? Yes, Councillor Wilkins. Seconder, Councillor Wright. Councillor Wilkins, if you'd like to speak
Thank you, Mayor. Mandurah has built a strong reputation over many years as one of West Australia's premier event destinations, from major internationally recognised attractions such as the Giants of Mandurah and Crab Fest, through to community festivals, sporting competitions, cultural celebrations. Events play a vital role in shaping our identity as a city and driving economic activity. We have seen firsthand the impact that major events can have. The Giants of Mandurah have attracted visitors from across Australia, around the world. They've filled local accommodation, supported hospitality venues and showcased the very best of our city. Likewise, events such as the Crab Fest continue to generate significant visitation and economic benefit while celebrating what makes Mandurah unique. Looking further back, Mandurah successfully hosted the Australasian Police and Emergency Games Service Games back in 2018, welcoming more than 3,000 competitors and officials from across Australasia. Events of that scale not only provide an immediate boost to local businesses, but they leave a lasting legacy on raising Mandurah's profile as a destination capable of hosting major events. The reality is that attracting people to Mandurah does not happen by accident. It requires investment, planning and partnerships. This strategy recognises that the city has an important role to play in bringing people to our community, supporting local businesses and ensuring Mandurah remains a vibrant destination all year round. One of the key questions we need to ask ourselves is if the city does not play a leadership role in supporting these events, both large and small, who will? Many of the events we enjoy today simply would not happen without the city's involvement, whether through funding, logistical support, promotion, venue access, or countless behind-the-scenes efforts that help event organisers succeed. Our events have helped tell Mandurah's story. They've shaped how people see our city, showcased our unique identity, celebrated our culture and our environment, and created memories for generations of residents and visitors alike. From major tourism drawcards to local community festivals, these events have become part of the fabric of Mandurah and contributed to the vibrant, connected and welcoming city that we are today. As a council, we have a responsibility to not only protect that legacy, but also continue building on it for future generations. This strategy recognises the important role events play in our economy, in our community and also our identity. It provides clear framework to ensure we continue building on our success while responding to changing community expectations and emerging opportunities. It positions Mandurah to continue attracting visitors, supporting local businesses and delivering memorable experiences for residents and visitors. Events are simply not a cost. They are an investment in Mandurah's economy, in our community and our future. Like I said, they bring visitors who support local businesses, they activate our public spaces and they help tell the story to the wider audience of our city. If the city does not play a role in supporting attracting events, I'm not sure who will. We cannot expect the benefits of visitation, of economic activity and community connection without making an investment to achieve them. For those reasons, I support the adoption of the festivals and events strategy. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkins. Councillor Wright, as a seconder, would you like to speak?
Through the Mayor. Look, I had the pleasure of attending an event this afternoon with the View Club of Australia, and about 40 or 50 people had come from outside of Mandurah to that event. But I thought I would share some of the information I took from them today. There's a $9.90 return on our money for the events that we currently have in place. It's exceptional. I noticed one stat in there around 32% of in-store spend is from visitors to Mandurah, which is $620 million. That's an incredible figure. But when I was speaking to these ladies at my table today, 4 of them were planning on coming back, and I've encouraged them to come back during a major event. And I did ask, what have you done so far in Mandurah? Giants are on the list. They'd done a little bit of a tour of the estuary, so I'd kind of done the walk around. They'd been to Wood and Stone. They'd been to Perched for breakfast. They've been to the Bay, the bar of all places, in the middle of winter, just to have a look. So there's other businesses they support. Dinner at Flicks tonight, and they're going to go for a yochi afterwards. And obviously the hotel accommodation. So all of this money that comes into Mandurah, and we're talking about a small event here, but anything that we can do in that space to improve that offering for tourists, but also to improve the offerings for employment for our local residents, I'm all for. So thank you for taking the time for this event strategy. I would commend it to the rest of the councillors.
Thank you so much, Councillor Wright. Wishing to speak against?
Yeah, questions, if I may.
Can we ask to speak against, and you can ask questions? Anyone wishing to speak against? If there's no one wishing to speak against, yes, Councillor Burns' question.
Thank you, and it's around the nature of what this strategy means as a commitment by council. Can officers confirm that endorsing the Festivals and Events Strategy 2026 to 2030 does not commit council to any new or increased expenditure, and that any funding requests arising from the strategy will remain subject to separate assessment through the annual budget and long-term financial plan process?
Thank you so much, Councillor Burns. I'll refer that to the Director of Strategy and Economic Development.
Yes, through you, Mayor. Yes, that's correct.
Thank you, Director. Further question, Councillor Burns?
Sure, and the context is the modelling seems to be pivotal from what I'm hearing. So does that cost-benefit modelling include sensitivity testing, confidence ranges and error margins? And has it been independently reviewed or verified by a third party?
Thank you so much, Councillor Burns. I'll refer that to the Director of Strategy and Economic Development.
Okay, thank you. Through you, Mayor. So it includes two scenarios. This is the central estimate, but as part of our sensitivity modelling, we do two scenarios, one at a 5% discount rate, one at a 10% discount rate. This is a rapid cost-benefit analysis, so it isn't... We don't put this out to independent reviews or have external consultants review the assumptions going in, although the way that we do it is we get together collaboratively and work through what those assumptions are, benchmark them against previous cost-benefit analysis, and the tool that we use draws and benchmarks it against previous analyses that have been undertaken.
Further question, Councillor Burns? Or would you like to speak?
Yeah, a question about the report. The report refers to the city increasingly positioning itself as an enabler or facilitator rather than being directly responsible for the event provision. Are there any measurable targets or actions within the strategy that demonstrate a reduction in direct city delivery, staff resourcing or ratepayer exposure over the life of the strategy?
Thank you, Councillor Burns. I'll refer that to the Director of Strategy and Economic Development.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. In terms of our measures that would demonstrate that, we do have a program for one additional cornerstone event. We would be measuring the footfall and economic impact and expenditure that comes with those events, at the same time keeping the fixed the city's contribution to this as fixed as far as possible. As I referred to the previous answer, when any additional requests would be coming to council, we would expect an increase in the sponsorship value and contributions from private providers and supporters as well to this program. Overall, these are some of the measures that we'll be tracking over this period to make sure that the level of productivity, as it were, is increasing.
Thank you so much, Director. Further
follow-up?
Final question, yes?
So that refers to how you would measure, the way I'm interpreting that, success of the events. But given the commitment, well, how I read it in the strategy was to shift away to enabling rather than delivery. So is that captured in the strategy objectively?
Thank you, Councillor Burns. Director of Strategy and Economic Development, please.
We would be looking to, within our events program, looking to see more. I think it is written in there in terms of increasing the number of feature events and privately delivered events within the program. And in addition to that, an increase in the level of sponsorship revenue that we would use to deliver the events at the same time.
Thank you so much, Director. Wishing to speak against?
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that leeway you gave me those questions. I want to make it clear from the outset, as I did when this strategy came to council for advertising, that I'm not opposed to community events in principle. Events like Crabfest, the Christmas Lights Trail and the Mandurah Arts Festival can bring people together, support local businesses and add vibrancy to our city. There are also parts of this strategy I support, particularly the focus on attracting externally delivered events, strengthening partnerships and attracting sponsors and leveraging more local content. But the question before us is not whether events are enjoyable, whether they bring people together, or whether they generate economic activity. The question is whether this report justifies council funding, delivering and potentially expanding these events through compulsory rates. Proving that events have benefits is not the same as proving that local government should be the body funding and delivering them. When this matter came before council previously, I asked a rhetorical question, and I'll ask again tonight. If the subsidy for major events was clearly separated out and ratepayers were asked directly whether they wished to fund it, what would the take-up be? That is the real test of support, not whether people like an event, but whether they agree every ratepayer should be compelled to fund it. That distinction matters. Much of the feedback we receive is feedback that people like events. This is not the same as evidence that the broader community supports council directly funding, delivering and expanding those events using ratepayer money. The engagement result in this report doesn't resolve that concern. We're told the strategy reflects extensive community consultation, yet the final survey result was 14 engaged participants, with 13 in support and 1 opposed. I don't dismiss those responses, but I don't believe such a small response base should be treated as strong community mandate for a major strategic direction. The financial information also gives me concern. The report presents a 5-year cost of $15.1 million and claimed benefits of $148.8 million, with an overall cost-benefit ratio of 9.9. That sounds compelling, but the table doesn't clearly show the actual net cost to ratepayers, including staff time, overheads and in-kind support. I've had this sentiment expressed to me many times in recent years. Businesses and residents have questioned why they are contributing through rates to events where the direct commercial benefit appears to flow mainly to a narrow group of businesses, and we got a good description of those businesses earlier. The report doesn't clearly explain who benefits directly, how broadly those benefits are distributed, or why the costs should be spread across the whole ratepayer base. That goes directly to fairness. I'm also cautious about the modelling. I'm not saying the modelling is wrong, but it reads as pivotal to the justification for this strategy. If council has been asked to rely on a headline benefit cost ratios, then the details behind that modelling should be visible. Ideally, they should have been made available during consultation, so people with relevant expertise in the community and private sector could test the assumptions before council is asked to endorse the strategy. The strategy says the city should increasingly act as an enabler or facilitator rather than being directly responsible for events. I support that direction, but I can't see clear measures showing reduced city delivery, reduced ratepayer exposure, or a real shift towards private, external or sponsored funded events. It's not enough to say events are popular. If council wants to take rates from the community to fund them, then council needs to prove the spending is necessary, fair and worth the cost. I don't believe this report makes that case, and for those reasons I can't support endorsing the festivals and events strategy in its current form. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor Burns. Councillor Wright has a question.
Through the chair, I'm just with what Councillor Burns has just said. The number of people who work in the retail space in Mandurah or tourism space, do we have stats on that handy top of head? I'm just trying to get a bead that if we didn't run these programs that are delivering to these local businesses, what type of impact may that have or might that have on employment within Mandurah? That's where I'm going. So perhaps that's a question I can ask
Yeah,
outside
no worries.
of council.
I'll refer that to the Director of Strategy and Economic Development if you can add anything to that space.
I don't have the numbers of the employment off the top of my head, but the underpinning. Just to clarify, the underpinning intervention or the justification for intervention, if this is useful, is that if in the absence of any city or particularly in the development of this strategy, we did talk about this a lot, in the absence of any sort of intervention, then the provision of events in Mandurah falls foul of the free rider problem. So imagine that you don't have, you have a series of businesses along the eastern foreshore, each of whom would benefit strongly by having the footfall along the space that an event might attract. Now, unless there is a strong level of coordination between those businesses, there's not really the incentive for any specific one of them to put to put an event on, because they incur the entirety of the costs, and the benefits will flow to the others who will thus free ride on that event. That is a market failure problem, and generally underpins the why the city, the justification for intervention in this space, that therefore the subsidising of these events. I can double check very quickly on the numbers of people employed in terms of retail, but I don't have that to hand, I'm afraid.
Thank you so much, Director. Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you. Through the chair, the amount of money that the city puts into these events, what percentage of that do we actually get back? Not the businesses, but the city.
Thank you, Councillor Schumacher. I'll refer that to the Director of Strategy and Economic Development.
I'll have to take that on notice. The proportion of money that we get back from events predominantly comes through our ticketed sales for these, the direct revenue that we receive, but that is then supplemented by the levels of activity that one sees in these respective areas, and the increase in rates that one gets from commercial activation as that moves forward.
Thank you, Director. Follow-on question, Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you, through the chair. The reason I ask is because I want to see what is the return on the dollar, the ratepayers' money that is used. What is the return? Do we break even? Do we lose 25%? That's what I want to know. So I'd appreciate that being taken on notice, please.
Anything else you'd like to add, Director?
Yes, if I may, through you, Mayor. So we have in the report the overall cost-benefit analysis of 9.9 in terms of return. That is the full benefit to the community relative to our investment. So that includes things like levels of expenditure that come to the city. It's not direct to the city in terms of our revenue through rates or ticket sales, but in terms of the benefit that's accrued by society or within the Mandurah community. That's the amount that it is, and it's roughly almost just under $10 per dollar that we invest. I hope that's of use.
Can I just ask what you were just saying, CEO, please?
Thank you, Mayor. So I just wanted to clarify the question, and Councillor Shoemaker is asking for the net cost of the events business unit or service at the city. Yeah.
Thank you, CEO, for that clarification. I'll refer that to the CEO.
Sorry, I could probably answer that because the Manager of Finance had provided me with the net costs for the 27 budget, and the net cost for events is estimated to be $2.99 million. That's a net cost. That's revenue less expenses. Oh, sorry, expenses less revenue. So the cost and the ratepayers' cost is $2.99 million.
Thank you, CEO, and thank you, Director, and thank you, Councillor Schumacher. Councillor Burns, another question, please.
Certainly, and the point about the benefits has prompted this question. Is there anything in this strategy, or is there anything, a policy or anything that, should the city or council decide not to predominantly deliver these events, that would prevent the private sector and professionals associated with events, professionals that deliver events and promoters, would the city prevent the private sector from holding similar events or these events?
Thank you, Councillor Burns. I'll refer that to the Director of Strategy and Economic Development.
No, there's nothing to prevent us from the private sector stepping in. Historically, our experience has been that when we haven't been involved, then nothing much has happened. And the reasoning for that is, again, there are a set of market failures that one falls back on in terms of the free rider problem, that sort of thing. But there's certainly nothing to stop the private sector stepping in. In fact, we are, in terms of us acting as an enabler, looking to encourage those sort of events within the city as well.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Wright, question.
Just looking at if we looked at the event strategy just in my head, so it's saying that it costs $5 million for Crab Fest overall with X amount of a return. Of that, the city pays 1.3 million, or that's what's budgeted for next year. I've got two questions actually. So am I correct in saying that of the $5 million cost for Crab Fest, if we look at page 369, the Channel 7 Mandurah Crab Fest costs $5 million, benefits $56.9 million, for a benefit cost ratio of 11.4. Of those costs, this is that's calculated over 5 years. Right, so that's the total all in for the city over 5 years. Yeah. Right.
The answer to that was yes. Is that correct,
So
Director?
through you,
Thank you so
yes.
very much. And your follow-on question, Councillor Wright?
No, that's fine.
That's
Thank you.
fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anyone else wishing to speak for the officer's recommendation? Yes, Councillor Green.
Thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity. A senior citizens person in our community probably wouldn't understand why we need a youth park. A person who uses a library probably doesn't understand why we need a BMX trail. So what I'm saying is we forget that sometimes in our community we have people with high income. So there's various levels of financial status. They're very well heeled. And if Mandurah doesn't provide some of these events, these people who bring money and economy into our community will find it dull and boring. And I've heard that before at various other councils. It's boring, we do nothing, there's nothing here to keep us. And we forget that these events not only provide some stimulus within the entertainment and civic events situation, it also brings in income, as Councillor Wright just mentioned. So I think we have to look at it in its entirety and not just make a decision based on I know that we are struggling financially in some sectors, but they also do get financial assistance through other means and services. So with a little bit of investment in Mandurah, I think it gives them the opportunity to showcase Mandurah and its features while we have these events, the estuary, the dolphins, which inspires people to go on cruises. And we've also got the wetlands. And I also had that experience with a person who I was having who had met at an event, and I asked them why they were here, and they said, well, we were actually here, we came here because we couldn't get to Bustleton, our car broke down. We didn't realise what you have here. We're coming back. So I believe that sometimes, we've got to spend a bit of money to make a little bit of money, and not everybody understands the different levels of our economic situation and why, as I mentioned, why a person who in our senior years would understand the needs of a younger person and a person with different perceptions on whether they want to be a reader or a basketball player, for instance. I think we've got to look at all aspects of the different people and cultures and living standard within our community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor Green. Is there anyone else wishing to speak against the item? If there's not, I'll hand it over to Councillor Wilkins to close the debate.
Thank you, Mayor. I forgot to acknowledge the officers that worked on the strategy, and also the many event staff that put these events together. As a young father of a young family, we come to a lot of these events. Most of them are free, and obviously, this day and age, those types of events are really handy because we can only attend some that are affordable. But I would also like to thank the councils that came before us. Many events and attractions we celebrate exist only because previous elected members had the courage and foresight to invest in Mandurah's future. Take the Giants again, for example. Now, I wasn't on council at the time. I remember when it was being voted on, there was, I'm sure some people here were on council at the time. some of you may have objected to it at the time, but that decision wasn't an easy one. It would have been easy just to say no to that investment and avoid it. And I can only imagine if the Giants ended up in Busselton or even worse, Rockingham, that Mandurah would have missed out on one of the most successful tourism attractions in our city's history and the enormous economic and community benefits that came with it. So I've said enough in support of this strategy, and yeah, thanks again to the staff that put it together.
Thank you so much, Councillor Wilkins. I'm now going to put that to a vote. All elected members in favour of the officer's recommendation, please raise your hand. All elected members against the officer's recommendation, please raise your hand. I declare that carried. We are now going to move in to report 19.6, the local law adoption. Council will consider final adoption of changes of local laws for property and public places. The amendments have been through public consultation, and formal adoption will allow the updated local laws to come into effect. The officer's recommendation is on the screen. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the officer's recommendation? Yes, Councillor Cumberworth as a seconder. Councillor Schumacher. Thank you, Councillor Cumberworth. Would you like to speak to the officer's recommendation?
Updating the local laws is one of the most important functions of the local government. It is a bit of a tedious process, but requires diligent attention. I'm satisfied that we have sufficiently reviewed the local law and am happy with it in its current form. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor Cumberworth. Councillor Schumacher as a seconder. Would you like to speak?
Thank you, through the Chair. Just very quickly, it was, I can say, one hell of a boring read to read the entire document, but that's...
Thank you to the staff.
That's what we are tasked to do. I do have a question which I'll ask later, but yes, second the motion, and it's a requirement.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Councillor Schumacher. Is there anyone wishing to speak against before I offer Councillor Schumacher to ask his question? If there's no one wishing to speak against Councillor Schumacher, would you like to ask your question, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I've just got to find my bit of paper now. What have I done with it? Put it this way, it has to do with male gender, female gender in public toilets. My question is, with the debate that's going on at the moment, there are those that, and I find this very confusing.
Just your question, please, Councillor Schumacher.
Males that identify as females, how do we interpret the word female gender or male gender? Is it biological female, biological male? Because I find that one's open to interpretation.
So is this in regards to the local law? Okay, I'll refer that to Director of Business Services, and she looks like she's getting to it for you.
I think I'll find it first.
It's okay.
Sorry. Oh, mate, don't worry about it.
Councillor Schumacher, do you want to turn your microphone off? Thank you. Director of Business Services.
Thank you, through the Chair. Please note, in this review of the local law, we made no amendment to the definition or the term of gender, that is, as it was adopted previously. In terms of the definition of gender, we have assumed that it is, we're just actually finding that information around the actual definition, but it did make no changes from the original local law, but just bear with us while we check the information.
Thank you so much. Yes, Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you, through the Chair. I suppose the reason behind that question is because I think that it needs to be clarified.
So is your question?
And the question is, can we change that to biological female, biological male.
Thank you so much, Councillor Schumacher. So the question is just to clarify, if it's possible to clarify what gender actually represents.
Through you, Mayor, just in looking at the local law, there is no definition of gender in the local law. So then we're referring to the definition where there's no definition in local law. That's the advice I think you're after, is where is the reference then of a definition of gender if it's not in the local law?
Thank you, CEO. Yes, Director of Business Services.
Through the Chair, as we mentioned, as the CEO mentioned, there's no definition under the local law. We haven't changed the gender for the access to toilet blocks or cubicles. However, we have referred to the gender under the Interpretations Act, and that is that you're of a particular gender where it relates to your sex. That is how it's defined under the Interpretations Act, is what we rely upon in our definition.
Councillor Schumacher.
So, through the Chair,
Question?
to the CEO, yes.
Yes.
How do we change that to get that specified?
Biological. I'll refer that to the Director of Business Services.
Thank you. Through the Chair, this is information being presented to us this evening. We would be making no recommendation to elected members to be amending the local law through this process. If elected members wish to explore this further, we would need to obtain advice, external legal advice, and advice from the department and the Joint Standing Committee. So we would be highly recommending that if Council do wish us to explore this matter further, that the item be deferred and be brought back. Please keep in mind this item has been through 4 workshops with elected members, and we have provided extensive opportunity for elected members to provide feedback. But I do caution Council not to make any amendments to the local law as presented to you this evening and defer the item if you so wish to do so.
Thank you very much, Director. Councillor Schumacher, have you got any further questions?
Chair, I don't intend to defer it. I'm just wanting clarification, nor do I want to change it. I just want clarification on how we get clarification.
Yeah. I think that will probably be a question for a briefing or for another day in moving forward. Thank you so much, Councillor Schumacher, for raising it. Is there anyone wishing... There's no one wishing to speak against the item. I'm going to put this item to the vote. All elected members in favour? As there are no electors against, I will not ask for electors against. We now move to report 19.7. The privacy policy. Council will now consider adopting a new privacy policy which will respond to new legislation and gives people confidence that the city handles their information responsibly and transparently. The officer's recommendation is on the screen. I ask if there's a mover and a seconder for the officer's... Councillor Burns as a mover, Councillor Cumberworth as a seconder. Councillor Burns.
Thank you, Chair. I'm generally supportive of a need for private property. In fact, I'm very supportive of a need for privacy policy. Local government holds a significant amount of personal information about residents, ratepayers, employees, applicants, objectors, complainants, volunteers and elected members. That information should be collected carefully, used only for proper purposes, securely protected and not shared more broadly than necessary. I also acknowledge that this policy is part of the city's statutory compliance obligation under the Privacy and Responsible Information Sharing Framework. So my starting point is supportive. Privacy protection matters. They protect individuals, they protect public trust, and they place necessary limits on how government collects, stores and uses and shares information. However, my support is not automatic. Before deciding my final vote, I do need some clarifications on 3 specific areas. The first is website tracking cookies, analytics and targeted digital advertising. The second is the third-party use of city-held personal information, and the third is automated decision-making. Those are not periphery questions. They go directly to how this policy will protect residents in practice, and I look forward to asking those questions and considering responses before determining my vote.
So just said you're going to speak for the motion. So you're still comfortable in speaking for the motion, but you just need clarification on those 3 questions. Just need to clarify. Thank you, Councillor Burns. Can I please refer those questions? Seconder, sorry. Councillor Cumberworth, you can speak as a seconder and then we'll refer those questions to staff. Thank you.
I'm happy to second the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cumberworth. I will refer those questions to staff. Director of Business Service.
May I ask the questions because I have more context behind them? The Chair.
Yeah, questions only, if that's possible. Thank you.
No preamble. It's not a statement. I just need context. We'll have to do potentially supplementary questions. All right.
Just ask the questions, and if they need more information, then we can gather that from you. Thank you so much, Councillor Burns.
Thank you, Chair. Can officers clarify whether residents will have clear ability to opt out of non-essential cookies, analytics and targeted advertising tracking when using city platforms, and whether consent will be actively sought rather than assumed?
Thank you, Councillor Burns. I'll refer that to the Director of Business Services.
Thank you. Through the Chair, the answer is yes to the first component of the question, and in terms of consent, the answer will be yes. We're currently drafting collection notices that will be made available, and that will be also published on our website.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Burns, second question.
Chair, where personal information is used by third-party contractors, consultants, software providers or other service providers engaged by the city, can officers confirm those third parties are prohibited from using city-held personal information for their own analytics, profiling, advertising, AI training, sale disclosure or unrelated commercial purposes?
Thank you so much, Councillor Burns. I'll refer that to the Director of Business Services.
Thank you. Through the Chair, yes, third parties are prohibited from using personal information or information provided for their own commercial benefit, and this is bound into our general consultancy contracts. Any breach of that, they would obviously breach the contract, and then they'd be required to notify the city of any breaches.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Burns.
Chair, the report says the city does not currently use...
It's just a question?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Does not currently use automated decision-making for important decisions about individuals. If that changes in future, will the introduction of automated decision-making come back to council before implementation, particularly where it could affect residents' rights, access to services, compliance action, enforcement decisions, eligibility decisions, or restrictions on individuals?
Thank you so much, Councillor Burns. Director of Business Services.
Thank you. Through the Chair. The way the policy has been drafted under Section 7 is in the event that the City of Mandurah determines that an automated decision-making or ADM would benefit in terms of productivity and efficiency, it's drafted in such a way that the city officers would undertake the impact assessment in accordance with the PRIS legislation. It would not require it to be brought back to council. The policy does include, obviously, in addition to compliance with the PRIS legislation, if we're going to be applying ADM, it requires us to notify the individual that we are using ADM, and it requests that we provide sufficient information and alternatives so we don't use ADM tool for that particular decision making. So the policy is very much so based on the principles, but it does not require, the way it's set at the moment, it does not require it to come back before council. However, if council wish to have officers to bring it back, we can certainly do that as well.
Thank you so much, Director. Follow-up, final question?
Is the city in a position to confirm those, adherence to protecting rights tonight? In which case, I guess council could have if they could have that assurance, then you could adopt that as business as usual. Then,
Director of Business Services, would you like to comment?
Thank you. Through the Chair. The way the policy is drafted at the moment requires the city to comply with PRIS legislation, be transparent, notify any impacted person that we're applying ADM, and require their consent or allow them to have an option to not apply ADM. That's the key principles in which council are adopting. Council then establish the policy, and we're required to comply with the policy. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Director, and thank you, Councillor Burns, for your questions. Is there anyone wishing to speak against the item? If there's no one wishing to speak against, I'll put this item to the vote. All elected members in favour? I declare that carried. We now move to report 19.8, Code of Conduct Complaint Management Policy. Council will consider updates to how Code of Conduct complaints are managed. This includes deciding whether complaints are handled by Council or referred to an independent person in line with the recent changes to legislation. Councillor Knight will move and Deputy Mayor will second. Would you like to speak to it, Councillor Knight?
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, we have workshopped this policy 3 times. What we have before us is 2 policy options, and I accept that there are opposing views around the table as to how we should deal with the Code of Conduct complaints. The fundamental differences between the 2 options is that in option 1, Council is involved in the final decision using the independent impartial investigator's report, and in option 2, the independent impartial investigator makes the final decision without Council. This option is the officer's recommendation and is the one that I'm supporting. The main 2 reasons why I support the officer's recommendation are as follows. 1, I cannot think of another area or workplace where such decisions are made about a peer's conduct. We are all tainted by bias, and so good governance and fairness is essential when making such decisions. That's why we make declarations of interest before considering items. It's why jury members cannot know the person that they are sitting upon to judge. Whether we admit it or not, whether we admit it or not, we hold views about people that we know, and that knowledge taints our decision making. The other significant reason that guides my decision is that the need for transparency. Our community deserves to have confidence in the way that these matters are dealt with. An independent, suitably qualified, impartial investigator makes a decision allowing for our community to have confidence in the decision. Can you imagine a situation where a community member makes a complaint against a councillor and then the council is able to have the final say on the outcome, which is done behind closed doors? While I'm not suggesting that this council would interfere with the outcome, it does make it open for a future council to do so. So I would strongly support the officer's recommendation. We need our community to have faith that if they make a complaint against a councillor, it will be dealt with without bias, and that the sentiment is being expressed, and that is the sentiment that is being expressed online by our community right now. So on that ground, I will be supporting the officer's recommendation to ensure that we, as a local government, uphold good governance and decisions are made without bias, which is what we expect of our officers when procurement practices occur. It is also in line with how workplace complaints are dealt with. What messages are we sending if we don't follow what we expect others to do across the organisation? On a final note, let us, as a council, conduct ourselves so that there is no need to enact a complaint process. And I urge you to support the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Knight. Deputy Mayor Smith, as the seconder, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you, through the Mayor. And apologies if this sounds quite a similar vein, but I'd just like to start by saying I really appreciate the extensive workshops, briefings and discussions that have been undertaken to support Council's consideration of this policy. After reviewing the options, I support option 2. My primary concern with option 1 is that it places Council in the position of determining complaints involving fellow elected members. And while we all strive to act impartially, it's unrealistic to expect we do not hold pre-existing views, experiences or relationships with our colleagues that could influence or be perceived to influence our decision making. As was discussed in the workshops, if the independent assessor is likened to a judge and the elected members are likened to a jury, in a court of law, a person would generally not be permitted to serve on a jury if they had prior relationship with those in the matter. The principle behind this is to ensure both actual impartiality and public confidence in the integrity of the process. And I firmly believe the same principle should apply here. My support of option 2 is not a reflection on the current council. I have total confidence in elected members sitting around this table, and would approach these matters with integrity and professionalism. However, policies should not be designed solely for today's circumstances. They should provide a robust framework for future councils and safeguard against potential for the process to be misused, politicised, or possibly weaponised. Importantly, the key difference, as Councillor Knight has spoken to, is between the two options is who makes the final determination. Given that the findings will be made publicly available, I do not believe Council needs to devote additional time to these matters, which can be more appropriately dealt through an independent process. The outcome remains transparent, with findings being recorded in the complaints register and will be available for public scrutiny on the City's website if a person is found to be in breach. Our community consistently tells us they value transparency, accountability and good governance. So in my view, an independent determination process better reflects those expectations than a model where elected members can make the final decision about complaints involving their colleagues behind closed doors. It's also important to recognise the significance of maintaining a safe workplace environment. This option suggests enhanced psychological safety for elected members and staff and contributes to a respectful, supportive and productive workplace culture. For these reasons, I believe option 2 provides the strongest governance framework and promotes public confidence in the complaints process. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor Knight and Deputy Mayor Smith. Is anyone wishing to speak against the item? Yes, can we ask you if you speak against, and then you can, if you'd like to speak against, Councillor Burns.
I would like to ask a question first, if I may.
Can you speak to the debate first? If the question's going to impact you speaking against the debate, it is.
Yes.
So at the moment you're on the fence.
That's what I'm going to say.
I would rather you speak to the debate, and then you can ask your question.
With all due respect, standing orders allow us to ask questions.
You can, but I'm the presiding member, so I can choose when I ask you to ask questions. At the moment, I'm asking you to continue with the debate. Can you please speak to against if you're wanting to speak against, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I will not be supporting option 2. I want to make it clear from the outset that my concerns are not with the independent complaints assessor. I have confidence that the ICA will undertake their role professionally, independently and in accordance with the policy. The question before us is not whether the ICA can perform the role. The question is whether Council should completely delegate responsibility for determining behavioural complaints involving elected members. In my view, it should not. The community elects us to exercise judgment, provide oversight and take responsibility for the decisions that come before us. While not every decision is easy or comfortable, that is precisely why we are elected. Where a complaint has been independently investigated and a recommendation prepared, I believe a council should remain responsible for making the final determination. That responsibility should not be handed away lightly. One of the strengths of the current model is that it accommodates different approaches, and option 1 is strongly aligned with the current model. Elected members who are satisfied with the ICA's recommendation remain free to support it. Those who wish to undertake additional scrutiny remain free to do so. That is how most matters before Council operate. We receive expert advice and each elected member decides how deeply they need to engage before casting their vote. Option 2 removes that choice entirely. I also believe behavioural standards form part of the culture of this Council. While independent investigation is important, responsibility for applying those standards should remain with Council. If we're prepared to set standards of behaviour for this Council, we should also be prepared to accept responsibility for their application. Finally, I do not see a compelling reason to remove Council from this process. From my recollection, and I stand to be corrected, Council has dealt with very few behavioural complaints over the past 5 years. The current model has not created unreasonable burden on elected members, officers or ratepayers. To be clear, the current one aligns strongly with option 1. For me, good governance requires both independence and accountability. Option 1 achieves that balance. Option 2 removes one half of it. For those reasons, I won't be supporting option 2.
Thank you, Councillor Burns. Is there anyone else wishing to speak for the officer's recommendation? Questions. I'll get Councillor Burns to ask his first. Councillor Burns, your question?
Thank you, Chair. And in response to the mover and the seconder, A point was made about, and I'm seeking clarification.
Question, yes,
Yep.
please. Thank you.
A point was made that the policy we're passing or implied applies to future councils. And when I read option 2, I understand from point 7, and if the CEO could confirm this, that this policy only applies to this current council because it is reviewed in 12 months' time.
Thank
so
you.
The comment about future councils is not
Can
applicable in this decision.
Yes, although we will have a new elected member on the 24th of September, so our council will look different within the next 12 months by one or more if, so you just don't know what it's going to look like. Sorry, CEO, you can answer.
Through you, Mayor. The recommendation is that it is brought before council again just for a review. And just want to be clear that it's just a workshop. So if council are supportive of continuing on with what's adopted, it doesn't have to come back to council. It's just a workshop.
Thank you. Really important considering we may look different in 12 months' time regardless of what option we go with. Councillor Mulder, your question?
Thank you, Mayor. 2 questions. The first question, the complaints register, the language used says where a breach occurred and then later on where a breach has not occurred. It is council's preference that, and then it lays out the information that would be provided. As I understand it, that's because it's actually not council that set those requirements, but it's the CEO that sets those requirements.
Can I ask for clarification on Councillor Mulder's question, please?
So just through you, Mayor. So it's the Local Government Act that hasn't set those requirements. It's council that are setting the additional disclosures in that register. So that's why the wording of council's preference is made, because it's over and above the legislation.
Thank you, CEO. Councillor Mulder, second question or follow-on question?
Follow-on question, thank you for that. So appreciate that clarification, but it's still my understanding that it is the CEO that will record and maintain the register. And in essence, my question is to the CEO, does the CEO intend to reflect council's preference?
Thank you so much, Councillor Mulder. CEO.
Thank you through the Mayor. Yes, that is always my responsibility, is to ensure that the policy is, and the register contains all the information that council approve.
Thank you, CEO. Thank you, Councillor Mulder. Another question?
Yes, thank you. And there was some confusion when we looked at this previously. I'd just like to understand whether we have satisfactorily foreshadowed option 1 in the comments that were made earlier by Councillor Burns.
Thank you, Councillor Mulder. Councillor Burns.
Well, I remember previous decisions where it was stated that was adequate, but I take your point and I'll do better, Councillor Mulder, but I would like to foreshadow option 1.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Councillor Burns, and thank you, Councillor Mulder. Is there anyone else wishing to speak for? Another question, Councillor Jackson.
In the event that nothing happens for a year and we come around to this 12-month review and there's nothing to review, do we then need to reinsert a 12-month review, or does that fall away, or what happens there?
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. I'll refer that to the CEO.
Thank you through the Mayor. So through a workshop, that will be a conversation. There's always a requirement to review the policy if legislation changes, or if it has passed 2 years as well. And this is certainly one of the council policies, just like the remuneration policies and that are reviewed after an election cycle as well.
Thank you, CEOs. Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Knight, if you'd like to close the debate.
Thank you. Look, I appreciate that there are different views around the
You got a
table.
question, Councillor Green?
No, I didn't have a question, but I allowed the question to go through because you did ask, was there anyone else for it? And then you went to the question.
You would like to speak for the...
Yes.
Okay, no
option
worries.
2,
Councillor
yes.
Green, you can speak. Thank you.
Thank you for that opportunity, Mayor, and for your question. Look, when there's a breach within a particular issue between council or councillor and somebody on the outside, I don't think that we're in a position where we would send that person to, say, a novice or somebody without the skills of counselling, particularly in the employee assistance counselling realm, and people who are quite skilled in trying to work out solutions to a particular problem. I think what can happen here is that if we leave that determination to counsellors, is that we all come from different backgrounds, which is really great, but we're not counsellors. There is a method to counselling, there's a process to counselling, and and that comes to reporting as well. And I think that we need to keep that impartial advocacy as well, as Councillor Knight mentioned. To know the issue not only brings, and you want to bring it to council, everybody has a different idea on it. It can become very divisive within council and to councillors, because we all come with a different approach to it. I think we need to leave it to one service of professional councillors who will then, use their skills to drill down into what the issues are. And they won't do it overnight. These are people who are quite experienced in this, and they will eventually come up with the solution, and then we will all know about that again. But that's why I'm leaning towards option 2. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor Burns, you've got a question?
A clarifying question
Yes.
in response to the elected member's statement. As I interpreted both options, the independent assessor is relevant for both of those options, and that council isn't initially coming up with solutions. We are just simply, the difference is that option 2 forgoes the right of review, and option 1 retains that. Is that correct? So in other words, we're not coming up with solutions, and we are, in both instances, relying on experienced independent assessor.
I'll refer that to the Director of Business Services for clarification.
Thank you. Through the Chair, yes, you're correct. Under both options, Council would be relying upon fully trained and qualified independent complaint assessors. The key difference between option 1 and option 2, under option 1, Council make the final determination whether there is a breach or no breach. Under option 2, Council would be foregoing that power and giving it to an independent complaint assessor as per the Council resolution. That's the key difference.
Thank you so much, Director. Councillor Shoemaker, another question?
So, yes, if I may, through the Chair. Councillor Burns just mentioned before that a right of review is under option 1 or 2, or there isn't one?
Councillor.
If we make the final determination.
Thank you so much, Councillor Shoemaker. Director of Business Services.
Thank you. Both options are consistent in that there is no right of reply or an appeal process for where there is a determination, but under both options there is procedural fairness and natural justice available.
CEO, would you like to speak? Yeah, no, I said CEO. CEO, would you like to, or Councillor Shoemaker? Thank you.
I think what Councillor Shoemaker is asking is if Council receive the independent complaint assessor's report, can they overturn the decision? Or the recommendation, sorry.
Thank you. CEO, Director of Business Services.
Oh, yes, they can.
Yes, thank you so much. Councillor Shoemaker, further question?
Don't speak.
Yes, Councillor Shoemaker, you can speak against.
Thank you, through the Chair. I'll make it very brief. I think that there's no right or wrong on this one, to be honest with you, and I understand councillors whether they go for 1 or 2. We have, as Councillor Burns said, we've dealt with one issue using council to make the final decision, which was a complaint made by the member of the public. There wasn't an issue at all. So I don't really have an issue with whichever way it goes, but I'll be going for council to make the final determination and follow the foreshadowed motion. It's all the same all the way through. We are intelligent enough we are genuinely enough to make our own decision, no matter who it is. But I understand the other side, as Councillor Knight said as well. This council, yeah, I'm fine with the way it is, the way it has worked. It's just we're bringing the independent assessor now, and obviously the number one thing will be to go with that. But as Councillor Knight said, and I totally agree, I hope there are no cases. In a very long time on council, there's been only a couple in many, many years. So here's hoping that there are none and we don't have to worry about it. Thank you.
Hear, Councillor Schumacher. I am going to put Councillor Cumberworth, you've got a question.
My question is, can it be confirmed that the independent person, once selected, is basically, there's no one above that person, there's no one that can challenge their decision, and their decision is unappealable. Is that correct?
Director of Business Services. And can you speak to both options for that response?
It's the same for, but obviously option 1 is different, but option 2, if the independent complaint assessor does have the power to determine a complaint, that is the outcome of the complaint. However, if the respondent to that complaint is dissatisfied with the outcome, there are no appeal rights. However, if they feel there's been a procedural flaw in the way the complaint has been handled or the conduct of the independent complaint assessor, the respondent to the complaint may contact the Ombudsman and make a complaint. In relation to option 1, the independent complaint assessor prepares the report, and in the report they include in that report their recommendation for the finding, whether a breach has occurred or not occurred. That report is then prepared by the CEO and provided to council on a confidential basis, where council then make the final determination on the outcome of the complaint. Hopefully that satisfied your question.
And that's final?
Yes, and that is final, and there are no appeal rights.
Thank you so much, Director of Business Services. I'm now going to close the debate and pass it on to Councillor Knight.
Thank you. Look, I think it's been a really good discussion. There are different views on this, but for me, I don't believe that we are handing away our responsibility. I believe that we are following good governance, and I know that we all are biased, whether we acknowledge it or not. I don't believe accountability is achieved by councillors judging their peers' behaviour. So for me, option two is definitely the one that improves transparency. The questions that have just been asked clearly show that while the current council may not, a future council could overrule the decision of the independent assessor, and for me that is a risk that I don't think is worth taking. I think we need to provide community the assurance that we won't, as a council, meddle in the decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Knight. I'm going to put option 2 to the vote. If it doesn't have the majority, then we'll go to the foreshadow motion that Councillor Burns has raised. All elected members in favour of option 2, please raise your hand.
Thank you.
Six. Okay, so that's lost. We will now go to foreshadow motion.
Do I get to move it as the foreshadow?
You absolutely
do.
I
haven't
Thank
really
you, Councillor
prepared
Burns.
for this. I'm flabbergasted. Look, I think we've already prosecuted the arguments. I think importantly, when someone was speaking for the points raised, when they were speaking for option 2, the points raised could equally be switched to 180 degrees and turn them into arguments against this one. So I will spare council me re-prosecuting the same points when I spoke against. But it's important to remember, and I'll summarise the previous debate, that both options rely on an independent assessor. So we're now talking about option 1. The right. For those that are predisposed to not judging, and I'm paraphrasing others, then they have every option just to accept the recommendation, but they have the foresight. The point I made earlier is with option 2, those who want to be assured that the process was followed and those that want to delve a little deeper have that opportunity, and I think that's important. So those that are predisposed not to want to judge, they can take at face value the recommendation of the independent complaints assessor, consider also the plan if there was a finding unfavourable to the respondent. They can prosecute their duties or their role in the same way as they get. But the difference is those that are of council that are in favour of having that oversight to ensure that the process is followed, and to, while it's a confidential matter, we can give assurance to our community who we've been elected to represent. We can give them that assurance that the process has followed, due process was adhered to, and again, this is an opportunity to and speak as an endorsement for the current council. It was more than one occasion we've largely this council was in place, and we handled it with maturity, with objectivity and professionalism. I have no doubt that would occur, it's highly unlikely there would be a massive turnover, but a policy is a council policy. So in the extremely unlikely event that council changes significantly, any policy at any time is available for review, and there's that democratic process that an individual councillor could bring before that review of that policy to council as a separate motion. So that there are mechanisms. I think it's just a lot neater. It doesn't deny someone the opportunity to assure themselves that the process was followed and to convey to the community that we're doing their job as they've elected us to do. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burns. I forgot to ask for a second. I guess Councillor Cumberworth. Sorry, Councillor Shoemaker. Councillor Cumberworth as a seconder.
I would implore all members here tonight to vote for the motion before us. It will come back for review in 12 months' time, and let's carry on with the more important business of the city. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor Cumberworth. I'm just going to ask for some clarification. As we have already deferred this in the past, tonight, if it does become, again, not a majority, what is the next step for us as a council? And what is our requirement to have this?
Thank you, through the chair. If council wish to defer the item, I would
I don't think it needs to be deferred,
Okay.
but I'm just saying if we have another 6,
Sure.
what does that look like for us? 5? Thank you.
So if this foreshadowed motion is lost, then someone could foreshadow a different motion back to option 2, which may not be the preference.
Yeah.
If council cannot form a decision this evening, I would be recommending that council make an amendment to the current policy to remove one factor within the policy that's currently non-compliant with legislation. And that would mean the current policy as council have adopted, that's on the council website, would be the current policy position, and you could defer it for a further workshop, but we do need one element of that policy amended just to ensure we're compliant.
Thank you so much. You'll foreshadow that? Okay. Is there anyone wishing to speak against? Yes.
Just a question.
Yes.
Just a question. So I appreciate the different views, but how are we going to reassure our community that we haven't overturned the independent assessor's recommendation when if it's a complaint that's come from community? How will we respond to that, given that there will be a level of cynicism that we are protecting our peers around the table? Just as a question.
Thank you, Councillor Knight. I'll refer that to... Is that an actual question or is that a... Okay. Anyone with questions or anyone wishing to speak against? Yes, Councillor Wright. can I get Councillor Wright to speak against, and then you can ask your question. Sorry, Councillor Burns. Thank you.
Just through the chair, my experience of code of conduct in a professional workplace does play some part in how I'm viewing this. We're all peers at the moment, and there's a fair bit of research around peers making judgments on their own peers. One effect is called the contagion effect, and that effect comes about when peers do make a judgment on others. The outcome, someone's going to be unhappy about, more than likely. And we can say that we're professional, and we can say that this is a high-functioning council, but were we to find ourselves in that position where someone vehemently disagrees with the decision that the council has made about them, and it's their peers making that decision, that effect can quickly spread through our council. Now, I'm not saying it will, I'm just saying that there's a higher possibility a negative contagion effect takes place. It's far easier to get a negative ball rolling than a positive ball rolling, and that would be backed up by this research that I've read. The other thing is, we may say we don't have biases, and we may say that we can be independent, but the fact that we're peers, we have an actual bias, naturally. So I will just, look, I don't want to spend more time on this than we need to, but I think we need to consider the impact of peers judging peers. It doesn't happen in the workplace. If I have a problem with teachers at my school, I'm only speaking from my profession. As principal, I don't get the teachers to judge the other teachers. And I tell you why I don't. Because they very quickly take sides against the others. That is my professional experience. And managing that is far harder to manage than an independent person coming in to actually make a judgment. And that would just be why I would speak against us as a council. And again, Caroline Knight, Councillor Knight, makes a fair point. What does the community see at that point? Okay, so perhaps I would agree with Councillor Jackson's foreshadow back to the original motion.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Question, Councillor Burns.
You asked a technical question about what would happen if there was an impasse. I want to seek further clarification on that, because we've had other examples, and I won't quote them, but I would in conversation, but not in the chamber, where we don't have a policy or we don't have a statute, then it defaults to adhering to the state government legislation. Is that the case here, or do we?
Thank you, Councillor Burns. I'll refer that to the CEO.
Thank you, through the Mayor. The council are required to have a policy, and so this is part of the policy, is how the decisions are being made and the process that council will go through.
So clarifying, the example I was thinking of, I think, is the standing orders. If we don't have our own local standing orders, then we default to the so that's not the case here. We need a policy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor Burns. Is there anyone wishing to speak for? If there is not, we will hand it back to Councillor Burns to close the foreshadowed motion.
Thank you, Chair. I think both sides of the argument have been prosecuted well, and there's no need to continue to prosecute it any further. And I thank you for the opportunity there.
Thank you so much, Councillor Burns. I'll put the foreshadow motion for a vote. All elected members. Director, would you like to speak? Sorry, one moment.
Thank you. Through the chair, I would suggest that you ensure there's clarity on what the foreshadowed motion is, just listening to the debate.
Okay. So the foreshadow motion is option 1 that is on the screen. No? Sorry. Yes, Councillor Jackson, do you want to express what your foreshadow motion is?
So my understanding is that if this fails, then we've basically got council saying no to both. So we have to have some policy there. Legally, we do. So what I would foreshadow is that we have some policy there, perhaps even a placeholder, that we can then be compliant while we figure out what we want to do, or while we figure out if we're able to come to some sort of agreement within us to move on from that. So whatever that policy is, what we've got currently now is not compliant, is that what you're saying? But there is a tweak we can put in there that will make us compliant without substantially altering the intent. Okay. That's what I foreshadow.
Thank you.
Can I just also clarify, would you like, though, although we've made an amendment, that also this comes back to council in 2 months' time? It's just that there has been no decision. There is no clear absolute majority. We do need to make an amendment with with a clause that's already in the policy, so it's to remove the clause of the existing policy to ensure that we have compliance, and then bring back this item again. Otherwise, what it is it's pretty much option 1. And if there's no clear majority on option 1, then it should be brought back to council.
Thank you, CEO. Are we able to write that foreshadowed just yet? We'll put it to the vote. All elected members in favour of option 1, please raise your hand. So that is also lost. We're just looking at the wording for the foreshadowed motion for those that are online or in chamber. Won't be a moment. Thank you to everyone who may be online watching. We will not be much longer, and to those in chamber. All right, elected members. Councillor Jackson, the foreshadowed motion. Can I please have a seconder for the foreshadowed motion, councillors? A seconder, Councillor Shoemaker. Councillor Jackson, would you like to speak to the foreshadowed motion?
Yeah, I think all's been said. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Shoemaker? Nothing. Nothing further. I would now like to put this to a vote. All elected members in favour? All elected members against? The foreshadowed motion, to bring it back. So the foreshadowed motion is on the screen. The policy we brought back to council on the 20, it says in the 27th, on the 27th of October 2026. That will be after the next council election in September. So it will be at the meeting after that election. Can I ask elected members, we'll put it to the vote one more time now that elected members have read the officer's the foreshadowed motion from Councillor Jackson. All elected members in favour of the foreshadowed motion that is on the screen at the moment, please raise your hand. All elected members against the foreshadowed motion that is on the screen. Thank you very much. I declare that carried. We now move to report 19.9, which is a very exciting report for one particular gentleman who has patiently waited to have his moment Council will now receive the May 2026 financial report. Regular reporting ensures transparency and responsible financial management with projects and services tracking as planned. I invite the Manager for Financial Services to present to us tonight. And thank you so much for staying around to do this presentation.
Thank you. Through the Chair, the monthly report for May 2026. As always, we'll start looking at the operating graphs on the... Or we won't. Sorry, we'll have to wait a little bit longer for the finance presentation.
It's worth the wait.
Great. Okay, so a look at our operating income. We can see that operating actuals are above budget, mainly due to disposal of assets and accounting treatment. Our operating expenditure is sitting below budget, where we'd like to see it. A quick look at the graphs for capital. You'll see non-operating income is quite below budget, obviously tied to capital expenditure, and capital expenditure is below budget. Just keeping in mind that these graphs do not include the carryover variations that we see in this financial report as well. The interest trends, so interest saved through the city's loan offset facility, total $154,215 year to date, and term deposit interest rates, we're tracking rates of up to around 5.1%. Rates receivable, so May last year we had collected 94.1%. May this year is at 95.6% collected, so we are above where we were same time last year, which is good to see. And just zooming into the properties with a debt of greater than 10,000, we are sitting just below where we were last year. And properties with 3 to 10,000, we are slightly above where we were last year, but we are processing interim rates where we weren't this time last year. There are a number of variations through the report that I'll take as read in the report. And there is one tender for the month of May that I'll take as read in the report as well, but I would like to note that the city's procurement team observed the tender evaluation process and is satisfied that the probity and procedural aspects relating to the evaluation were compliant. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jared, for the presentation. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the financials? Yes, Councillor Wright moved, Councillor Cumberworth as a seconder. Councillor Wright, would you like to speak to it?
Through the Chair, thank you for the report there. Just making a few comments on some of the stuff in the report. The Pinjarra Road and Strother intersection coming in under budget was a plus for the city. If I look at the Eastward stuff in there, the Coodnut Foreshore is still progressing. We were down there on the weekend for the fun run. It looks magnificent. Close to my heart, a couple of the local parks in the Greenfields area. Norwich Reserve getting a good upgrade out there. That looks great. And bringing forward a bit of money from the Parks Reserve for the bench program into the Mississippi Amazon Park is great. It's right down the street from the school. So looking forward to that progressing. The operating expenditure is obviously 10 million under, rates collected at 95.6%, and I'm really pleased to see there's $220,000 for stairs at Town Beach. I've had enough of listening to my dad because that is where he likes to get on the beach. So I appreciate that there's been grant funding through for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor Cumberworth as a seconder.
I absolutely support carrying budgets over from one financial year to the other to ensure smooth workflow and support Councillor Wright's, enjoyment of seeing the parks in around Mississippi Drive being upgraded. That's an excellent achievement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cumberworth. Is there anyone wishing to speak against? Anyone wishing to ask a question? Councillor Burns?
Speak against.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Burns.
If I may, refer council all the way back to 3 hours ago when I asked some questions without notice regarding some of the financial items. Since then, I've debated against the long-term financial plan and rates and outlined many of my concerns, and similarly with the events. And I note some of those carryovers have parallels or overlay concerns with the... So my concerns outlined in those discussions overlay with my concerns, and they remain. So just for the public record, if I'm going to vote against, then I think it's fair that I reference why without going into too much further detail. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor Burns. Is there anyone else wishing to speak for? If there is no one else wishing to speak for, I would ask Councillor Wright to close the debate.
Nothing further to add.
Thank you so much, Councillor Wright. All elected members in favour of the officer's recommendation that is on the screen. All elected members against the officer's recommendation that is on the screen. I declare that carried. As we currently have no motions of which notice has been given, notices of motion for consideration at the following meeting, I have not received any motions. Late and urgent business, there is also none. There are no confidential items. And so now it is the time of the night that we get to say thank you to every single person who stayed online and watched throughout tonight's council meeting. To those that are still in chamber, thank you so much for your time. For your participation, your support in assisting the meeting to run smoothly. I thank the staff, and I declare all business concluded and close the meeting at 8:48 p.m. and request that live streaming be terminated. Thank you. Have a great...